Chapter 161. Mr. Yes' words really woke me up. No one in the Huangjiang Academy expected that the truth was like this. The head of the Lu family, Lu Xinghe, looked at the beautiful figure on the stage as if 1,000 knives and swords had stabbed his heart. As King's father, he didn't choose to believe his daughter from the beginning. The people from the Lu family were the same. They wished they could find a hole to hide in. The farce is over. Go call Mr. Yi. We should go back, Elder Su said slowly. Su Yao nodded and walked to the stage. Mr. Yi, my father is going back home. Can you? Su Yao looked at Yi Li tentatively. Let's go, Yi Li said leisurely. At this moment, Yi Li's handsome face still didn't change at all, as if nothing had happened. Yi Li slowly walked down the platform, leaving the people from the Huangjiang Academy stunned on the spot. In the Su family's hall, Yi Li slowly picked up a white jade cup, which was filled with the best tea leaves in the Huangjiang base city. After taking a sip, Yi Li put down the white jade cup, his handsome face calm. At this moment, in the Su family's hall, there were all important figures of the Su family, the Lu family and the Wu family. The Su family, the Lu family, and the Wu family were the three biggest families in Huangjiang base city. Su Changfeng, the head of the Su family, was a Tier 7 evolved being. Lu Xinghe, the head of the Lu family, was a Tier 6 evolved being, and Wu Zifu, the head of the Wu family, was a Tier 6 evolved being. Dad, Mr. Yi killed 2 recruiters of Cloud Peak Academy, Suner and Xiaoqian. Although Su Yao didn't finish speaking, his meaning was very clear. In other words, should Suner and Xiaoqian still go to the Cloud Peak Academy? Elder Su waved his hand. The Cloud Peak Academy is one of the 3 academies established by the Warrior Alliance. During the test, Suner and Xiaoqian's information had been transmitted into the new student database of the Cloud Peak Academy. But Elder Su, the 2 recruiters of the Cloud Peak Academy, died in Huangjiang Bay City after all. We don't know the background of the 2 recruiters. One thinks Suner and Xiaoqian shouldn't go to the Cloud Peak Academy. Lu Xinghe looked at Elder Su and said. Elder Su was silent for a few seconds. Just as he was about to nod, a carefree voice entered everyone's ears. Their deaths have nothing to do with your Huangjiang base city. Yi Li slowly said. But Mr. Yi, the 2 recruiters died in Huangjiang base city after all. Su Yao looked at Yi Li awkwardly. Yi Li smiled casually. Did you see them die in the Huangjiang base city with your own eyes? Su Yao was stunned. He didn't understand what Yi Li meant. So many people in the Huangjiang Academy had seen it. Elder Su smiled and looked at Yi Li. Mr. Yes' words really woke me up. Dad, what do you mean? Su Yao was confused. We just need to plant the death of the 2 recruiters of the Cloud Peak Academy on the members of the Dark Race in Pan City. After all, they are only Tier 4 evolved beings. The Cloud Peak Academy will have to believe us, Elder Su said slowly. Hearing Elder Su's words, everyone in the hall understood. Su Yao smiled. His father was indeed an old fox, but Mr. Yi was still the smartest. But what should we do about Qingxue? Lu Xinghe suddenly asked. Everyone in the Su family's hall fell silent. Lu King's matter was not easy to resolve. Chapter 162. Leaving Lu King's matter had already been known by the Cloud Peak Academy. Although Lu Qingxue didn't collude with the Dark Race, how could the Cloud Peak Academy believe her? Well, Wu Zifu, the head of the Wu family, shook his head. He didn't know how to solve such a matter. The corners of Yi Li's mouth curled up slightly, and a faint smile appeared on his handsome face. The faint smile on Yi Li's face was captured by Elder Su. Elder Su looked at Yi Li and said, Mr. Yi, do you already have a solution? Not really. If you trust me, leave Qingxue to me. He'll take her to a safe place, Yi Li said slowly. Hearing this, Lu Xinghe pondered for a few seconds and then said to Yi Li, Mr. Yi, one believe you. For now, this was the only solution. If Lu Qingxue kept staying in the Huangjiang base city, Cloud Peak Academy would definitely come for her. Lu Qingxue, Su Suner, and Lu Qian were also in the hall. Lu Qingxue was stunned when she heard that. She looked at Yi Li, not understanding where Yi Li was going to take her. Since you believe me, I will take her away. With that, Yi Li walked to Lu Qingxue. Let's go. Sister Qingxue. Su Suner and Lu Qian looked at Lu Qingxue sadly. Don't worry. I'll be back. Lu Qingxue looked at Su Suner and Lu Qian. Immediately, Yi Li and Lu Qingxue left the Su family and the Huangjiang base city. After leaving the Huangjiang base city, Yi Li and Lu Qingxue slowly walked in an unknown small city. He released the Apocalypse Legion from the system space. Ada Hongye by Wawa Yutong. Lu Qingxue was a little scared. Although she knew that Ada and the others wouldn't hurt her, the pressure of 4 6-tier zombies made her unable to calm down. Brother, we can finally come out. Yutong said to Yi Li in a childish voice. Since Yutong put on the white princess lowly dress, she had become extremely cute. Now that she had become a sixth-tier evolved being, she was naturally like a porcelain doll. Yi Li touched Yutong's head, and Yutong smiled sweetly again. Hongye, who had the prettiest face in the Apocalypse Legion, was wearing a stunning fiery red dress and had long hair that reached her waist. At this moment, the sun shone on Hongye's exquisite jade-like cheeks. There was no telling if the sun illuminated Hongye or Hongye illuminated the sun. Seeing Yutong's sweet smile, Lu Qingxue was less afraid. "Senior, where are we going now?" Lu Qingxue looked at Yi Li and asked. "The Anan Base City." Yi Li slowly opened his mouth. Immediately, Yi Li led the Apocalypse Legion and Lu Qingxue to the Anan Base City. They arrived at the outer city of the Anan Base City. Yi Li was now an absolute celebrity here. Everyone knew him. Seeing that it was Yi Li and his Apocalypse Legion, the generals of the outer city immediately shivered in shock. "Master Yi!" a senior colonel shouted at Yi Li. Then the city gate opened. Lu Qingxue was a little stunned. She didn't expect Yi Li to have such special privileges in the Anan Base City. Then she understood. She felt that there was nothing that senior couldn't do. Chapter 163. I'm here for Chen Ruxue. Yi Li didn't put his Apocalypse Legion into the system space. Anyway, everyone in the Anan Base City knew that he had 4 sixth-tier zombies. He guessed that the recruiters who came to the Anan Base City to recruit students had already returned to the Cloud Peak Academy. After all, it had only taken him a few days to come from the Huangjiang Base City. Even if they didn't leave, Yi Li wasn't afraid at all. Soon he walked from the outer city to the main city of the Anan Base City. Seeing that it was Yi Li, the pedestrians on the streets of the Anan Base City all stopped and looked. Master Yi is back. Master Yi is so handsome. If one can win Master Yi's favor, one would be willing to live 10 years less. Come on, you want to win Lord Yi's favor? Why don't you find a mirror to look at yourself? I'm different. I'm so beautiful. The beautiful girls on the streets of the Anan Base City all looked infatuated. Yi Li was too famous in the Anan Base City now. The people in the Anan Base City could forget their own birthdays or even their wives' names, but they would never forget who Yi Li was. That day, the members of the Dark Race led an army of 100,000 zombies to attack the Anan Base City. If it weren't for Yi Li, the Anan Base City would have long been destroyed. It could be said that Yi Li was their savior. Lu Qingxue was shocked. She had heard of the Anan Base City, but she didn't know that Yi Li was so famous in the Anan Base City. From the looks of it, he was simply the common idol of everyone in the Anan Base City. The news of Yi Li's return to the Anan Base City instantly spread throughout the entire city. The Anan Council, the highest power organization in the Anan Base City, immediately came to welcome them in person. The roads that Yi Li walked on were paved with red carpets and cannons were fired. The people of the Anan Base City cheered in unison. Master Yi, will you stay in the Anan Base City from now on? Yunmu said to Yi Li. Yi Li shook his head. I'm here in the Anan Base City for Chen Ruxue. Chen Ruxue? The 10 core members of the Anan Council were all a little stunned. They dared to swear that this was the first time they had heard the name Chen Ruxue. Master Yi, who is Chen Ruxue? The president of the Anan Council, Kong Lin, asked Yi Li. Yi Li had forgotten Chen Ruxue's name in the Anan Base City. Chen Ruxue's name was Mei Lin. Mei Lin, Yi Li said slowly. They naturally knew the name Mei Lin. Although they didn't know why Yi Li wanted to talk to Mei Lin, they would never ask. Master Yi, Ms. Mei Lin, Xiao Hui and Yun Man are at the Anan Academy. Do you need us to go with you? Yunmu asked. No need. Yi Li waved his hand. Immediately Yi Li took Lu Qingxue to the Anan Academy. They soon arrived at the Anan Academy. Yi Li still remembered the Anan Academy very clearly. Everyone in the Anan Base City started to be afraid of him because of what he did in the Anan Academy. He suddenly remembered a person's name, Chen Yun. Chen Yun's father, Chen Ba, died at the hands of Yi Li. After that, Chen Yun disappeared. No matter which world it was, there were 2 deep hatreds, one for killing a man's father and the other for snatching a man's woman. Yi Li thought that Chen Yun must have left Anan Base City. As the saying went, it was never too late for a man to take revenge. It was only natural for him to take revenge for his father. He would just wait for Chen Yun's revenge. Chapter 164. Take a person away. The students of the Anan Academy widened their eyes when they saw Yi Li. Some of the students who had just entered the Anan Academy had come from the surrounding cities of the Anan Base City. They hadn't experienced the zombies' last large-scale attack on the Anan Base City. Yi Li's photos could be seen everywhere in the Anan Academy. All the faculty and staff in the Anan Base City regarded Yi Li as their lifelong faith. Some students who didn't know Yi Li's deeds all stared at Yi Li, thinking that since Master Yi Li had personally come to the Anan Academy, they had to take a good look at him. Master Yi Li is really awesome. I feel that the Nine Heavens God of War has appeared in front of me. Look, there are 4 6-tier zombies behind Lord Yi Li. These are Lord Yi Li's Apocalypse Legion, Ada Hongye by Wawa and Yutong. If only I could be 1/10,000th as powerful as Master Yi Li in my life, I would have been satisfied. Then, the president of the Anan Academy and many teachers came over to greet Yi Li. The president of the Anan Academy said respectfully to Yi Li, "Master Yi, what can I do for you?" "Where is Ms. Meilin?" Yi Li asked leisurely. "Master Yi, Ms. Meilin is in the Purple Moon Forest." The Purple Moon Forest was the place with the richest spiritual energy in the Anan Academy. Yi Li didn't say anything and slowly walked towards the Purple Moon Forest. At this moment, many students were sitting cross-legged on the ground cultivating. Every student's forehead was drenched in sweat. "Ms. Meilin, are you really leaving Anan Bay City?" Yunman looked at Chen Rushua sadly. "Yunman, you and Xiaohui are going to the Cloud Peak Academy in a few days. When you reach the Cloud Peak Academy, your future will be limitless." "I'm going back to where I should go," Chen Rushua said. "But Ms. Meilin, where are you going? Why didn't you tell me?" Xiaohui's cute little face was full of curiosity. Chen Rushua shook her head. "You will find out later. If you go back, you have to take someone with you." An abrupt voice entered the ears of everyone in the Purple Moon Forest. Everyone widened their eyes and looked in the direction of the voice. Then they froze. Some were shocked and some shed tears. Xiaohui rubbed her eyes. Man, am I seeing things? Why am I seeing Senior in front of me? I think I'm seeing him too. Yunman couldn't believe it either. Yi Li walked to them and smiled at them. "Don't speak yet. Let me think. You should be thinking about me every night. Every night should be a sleepless night for you, right?" Yi Li said lightly. As soon as he said this, Xiaohui, Yunman, and Chen Rushua blushed like ripe apples, making one want to take a bite. "Senior, Yunman and I will go to Cloud Peak Academy in a few days," Xiaohui said to Yi Li. Yi Li smiled. "Go to the Cloud Peak Academy and cultivate well. Otherwise, how can you travel with me in the future? By the way, let me introduce you to a friend, Lu Qingxue." With that, Yi Li asked Lu Qingxue to come over. After Xiaohui, Yunman, and Chen Rushue introduced themselves to Lu Qingxue, Yi Li looked at Chen Rushue and said, "Are you leaving?" Chen Rushue hesitated for a few seconds and then nodded. "Take her away. This is my request." Yi Li looked at Chen Rushue. Chapter 165. These are gifts for you. Chen Rushue was stunned. Looking at Yi Li's serious expression, for some reason she didn't even want to ask why. "Okay." Chen Rushue nodded firmly. Lu Qingxue had no intention of refusing. She knew that Yi Li was already a great benefactor to her by taking her out of the Huangjiang Bay City. How could she dare to say anything else? "Senior, how long will you stay this time?" Xiaohui looked at Yi Li and asked. "I'll leave immediately." Yi Li pondered for a moment and said. Xiaohui, Yunman, Chen Rushue, and Lu Qingxue were all stunned. Yi Li knew very well that he was far from strong enough now. In the face of the powerful dark race members and the powerful genetic warriors, he was still very helpless. He had to level up crazily. He suddenly thought of something and looked at the 4 women. "Before I leave, I'll give you something." As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Li opened the Point Mall. He still had more than 700,000 points, which was enough to buy many things. He searched in the Point Mall and saw a few things. Swallow Steps, Origin Returning Dance, Flying Flower Speed, Purple Phoenix Leg. All 4 skills were great, each worth 100,000 points. Yi Li bought these 4 skills without hesitation. After collecting the items, 4 secret books appeared in Yi Li's hand. "These are for you. You can choose for yourselves," Yi Li said lightly. Xiaohui, Yunman, Chen Rushue, and Lu Qingxue looked at the secret book in Yi Li's hand in shock. "Senior, what are these?" Yunman asked weakly. "These 4 skill books are all great. These are my gifts to you before I leave," Yi Li replied. As soon as he said this, the 4 women were shocked. Great skills were absolute treasures. They didn't expect Yi Li to take out such treasures without even frowning, and there were 4 of them. The 4 women each took the skill books they liked and couldn't bear to put them down. "I'm leaving," Yi Li slowly said. The 4 women were shocked and all looked up at Yi Li. "Senior, so fast?" Xiaohui's voice was full of sadness. "Yes, cultivate well after you and Yunman go to the Cloud Peak Academy," Yi Li said slowly. As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Li slowly walked back. Xiaohui, Yunman, Chen Rushue, and Lu Qingxue stared at Yi Li's receding figure until he disappeared from their sight. As soon as Yi Li left Anan Base City with the Apocalypse Legion, the system's voice appeared in his mind. Ding. The Heavenly Tower trial has been triggered. Host, please keep going north. Yi Li was a little surprised. How could he have forgotten this? Yes, even the dragon-slaying blade had a trial, so must be the Heavenly Tower. Thinking of the shocking spiritual treasure he obtained from the dragon-slaying blade trial, Yi Li couldn't stay calm anymore. Then he led Ada Hongye by Wawa and Yutong north. He didn't know how long he had walked, but he still hadn't reached the so-called Heavenly Tower trial. Instead, he had synthesized more than 100 zombies. Yi Li continued to walk. Suddenly he came to a beach by the sea. If others were suddenly taken to another place out of nowhere, they would be scared out of their wits, but Yi Li looked very excited. This was because he knew that this was the trial of the Heavenly Tower. Chapter 166. Hundreds of Tier 1 zombies. Yi Li was on the beach. In front of him was a vast sea. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the sky, and strange beasts flew across the sea from time to time. Roar! Roar! Yi Li was slightly stunned. There were zombies on the beach too? He looked over in an instant and found hundreds of zombies rushing over. When these zombies saw Yi Li, they were like people who hadn't eaten for 10 days and 10 nights seeing food. They were simply crazy. What Yi Li didn't expect was that these zombies all had green eyes, which meant that these zombies were all Tier 1 zombies. Yi Li had never encountered a group of Tier 1 zombies before. He smiled. More than 100 Tier 1 zombies? Besides, the number of male and female zombies was the same, which meant that he could produce 4 6-tier zombies. The Apocalypse Legion was all 6-tier zombies now. It seemed that he had obtained a lot from the trial of the Heavenly Tower. Attack! Yi Li gave command to the Apocalypse Legion. As soon as he finished speaking, Ada Hongye by Wawa and Yutong rushed out and used their respective skills. More than 100 Tier 1 zombies were extremely terrifying, but in Yi Li's eyes they were nothing more than this, because his super synthesized system was even more terrifying. Ada and the others were all 6-tier zombies. As long as a zombie fell, Yi Li would start to synthesize the zombies to attack other zombies. There were more and more zombies on Yi Li's side, and there would be fewer and fewer Tier 1 zombies. Before long, the Tier 1 zombie group was completely wiped out. Without hesitation, Yi Li began to synthesize these 100 or so Tier 1 zombies. As he expected, these 100 or so Tier 1 zombies happened to synthesize 4 6-tier zombies. 2 6-tier male zombies and 2 6-tier female zombies. Yi Li dragged the 4 6-tier zombies to the bodies of the 4 members of the Apocalypse Legion. Ding. Do you want to confirm the synthesis? Yes. Alda has been upgraded to a Tier 7 zombie. Hongye has been upgraded to a Tier 5 zombie. Bai Wawa has been upgraded to a Tier 5 zombie. Yutong has been upgraded to a Tier 7 zombie. As the system finished speaking, Yi Li looked at Ada Hongye by Wawa and Yutong. He discovered that after Ada and the others became level 7 zombies, the corpseization features on their faces had completely disappeared, and their eyes had turned red. If it weren't for the red eyes, ordinary people wouldn't have associated Ada and the others with zombies. Besides, their appearance became even better. Yi Li looked at their attributes. Ada, a Tier 7 zombie. Zombie attribute, strength. Zombie arcana, earth-shattering fist, wind, rain, thunder and lightning. Zombie exclusive weapon, supreme boxing gloves. Hongye, a Tier 7 zombie. Zombie attribute, speed. Zombie arcana, frost chi. Zombie only weapon, none for now. Bai Wawa, a Tier 7 zombie. Zombie attribute, defense. Zombie arcana, absolute defense. Qilin foot. Zombie only weapon, none for now. Yutong, a Tier 7 zombie. Zombie attribute, comprehension. Zombie arcana, petrification. Zombie only weapon, none for now. Yi Li thought that now that they were all Tier 7 zombies, he would be invincible in the Huangjiang Base City. After the trial of the dragon-slaying blade, Yi Li knew that this was only the first test. There were still several tests to come. At this moment, a shocking wave suddenly rose on the sea. Chapter 167. A Tier 7 giant member of the dark race. As soon as Yi Li checked the attributes of Ada and the others, a shocking wave suddenly rose on the sea. Boom. A tsunami-like sound came. Yi Li could tell that a giant monster was coming out of the sea. Roar. Yi Li listened to the terrifying sound. Suddenly, a giant demon finally appeared. Host, this is a kind of sea race member of the dark race. The system's voice appeared in Yi Li's mind. It was exactly as Yi Li thought. There were many kinds of members in the dark race and they were much more terrifying than zombies. If he wanted the entire post-apocalyptic world to return to its former peace, he had to destroy the dark race. This giant demon was dozens of feet tall and had countless tentacles. Its entire body was pitch black like steel, and it stood in the sea shockingly. Looking at this huge dark race member, Yili couldn't help but think of the last boss of Ultraman who looked very similar to this dark race member. However, being big didn't necessarily mean being strong. This huge dark race member in front of him was only at the 7th level, comparable to the Black Dragon Pool Yili had encountered in the Black Dragon Pool. Suddenly, this huge member of the dark race opened his mouth, and a terrifying light wave kept charging in his mouth, as if it could destroy the world as long as it was launched. Boom! As a terrifying lightning bolt struck the sea in the sky, the originally dark sky was illuminated as if it were daytime. At this moment, the black light wave in the mouth of the giant dark race member was finally charged towards Yili. When this black light wave passed the sea, a huge water spout appeared on the sea, turning everything it passed into ashes. Swish! Just as the black light wave was about to attack Yili, Ada, Hongye, Baiwawa and Yutong had already jumped into the air. Ada and the others were all tier 7 now, so they could naturally fly for a short time. There was no need to talk about Yili. The zombies produced treasure chests every day which contained all kinds of attribute points. He was also an SSS-level genetic warrior. He could fly high in the air, jump from tall buildings to flat ground and walk across rivers and seas. After Yi Li and the Apocalypse Legion arrived in midair, although this huge dark race member was terrifyingly born, he was only at the 7th tier after all. He took out the dragon-slaying blade from the system space, raised it high and shouted, "Flame Blade Technique." As soon as he finished speaking, the dragon-slaying blade slashed down heavily. Countless terrifying fire blades attacked the huge dark race member. In an instant, the sea under the huge dark race member turned into a real sea of fire. At the same time, Ambassador Ah launched the earth-shattering fist. The fist shadows of the earth-shattering fist were mixed with the attacks of wind, rain, lightning, and thunder. Hongye raised her palms, and the fiery red dress was as cold as ice. Frost chi rushed out of her palms. Although Baiwawa looked like a child, he was wide and fat. His right foot suddenly became extremely huge. People only knew that there was a Qilin arm, but they didn't know that there was also a Qilin foot. Baiwawa raised the Qilin foot and stomped at the huge member of the dark race. Yutong was extremely cute. She was wearing a white princess lowly dress, and an invisible light shot out of her pupils. This was the light of petrification. The poor giant member of the dark race was burnt by fire, punched, frozen, stepped on and petrified. This scene was simply tragic. Chapter 168. The Power of the Heavenly Tower. This pitiful giant member of the dark race fell heavily after being hit by fire and ice. Yili's handsome face was calm. He certainly wouldn't feel the slightest joy. If his Apocalypse Legion couldn't even deal with a tier 7 member of the dark race, how could he dominate this world? Among the 4 members of the post-apocalyptic world army, Ada was the strongest, followed by Baiwawa, and Hongye and Yutong were weaker. However, now was not the time to consider this. He had to complete the trial of the Heavenly Tower first. Yili and Ada landed on the sea. He looked at an island in the distance. The Heavenly Tower's final trial must be on that island. Let's go to that island, Yili said to the Apocalypse Legion. Immediately, Yili led the Apocalypse Legion towards the island. After walking thousands of meters on the sea, a group of dark race members emerged from the sea. These members of the dark race were about the same size as humans. There were hundreds of them. They held steel forks and looked like mermen. Their eyes were red and emitted a creepy light. These members of the dark race were all tier 2 evolved beings. With hundreds of them gathered together, they were definitely terrifying. Unfortunately, under absolute power, all cohesion would be reduced to nothingness. Yili suddenly thought that he could use the dragon-slaying blade before it recognized him as its master, which meant that he could also use the Heavenly Tower. If he used the Heavenly Tower here, no one would see him. He could try the power of the Heavenly Tower. Suddenly, Yili took out the Heavenly Tower from the system space. The Heavenly Tower was one of the 10 great divine weapons. Its suppressing power was extremely domineering. Many people had found the 10 great divine weapons, but no one had been able to pry out the secrets inside. This was because the 10 great divine weapons would disappear at a certain time. Even if they hugged them to sleep every day, they would disappear. However, if you made them recognize you as their master, they wouldn't disappear. Although the dragon-slaying blade trial seemed simple, it was actually very difficult. This was because he had the Apocalypse Legion. If he was alone, the difficulty could be imagined. What was even more terrifying was that the divine weapon trial could be strong or weak according to the specific person. Since ancient times, there were only a handful of people who could pass the divine weapon trials. After Yi Li took out the heavenly tower from the system space, the heavenly tower appeared in his hand. The heavenly tower had 7 floors. It was completely black and looked quaint, as if it had experienced the vicissitudes of time. Kill? Hundreds of mermen rushed over with steel forks. In the water, the combat power of mermen was much stronger than on land. However, Yi Li threw the heavenly tower into the air. After the heavenly tower passed in midair, it instantly became thousands of feet long. Suppress. As soon as Yi Li finished speaking, the heavenly tower fell at a terrifying speed towards the hundreds of mermen below. The scene was terrifying. Immediately, screams were heard continuously on the sea. With this blow from the heavenly tower, more than 100 mermen died. Yi Li thought that the heavenly tower was similar to the dragon-slaying blade. As expected of one of the 10 great divine weapons. It was fucking awesome. The remaining mermen were about to rush to Yi Li's side. Their red eyes looked extremely evil, thinking that they could take revenge when they reached Yi Li. Unfortunately, they had overlooked one thing. This was enough for them to die 10 times. Kill them, Yi Li said slowly. As soon as he finished speaking, Ada by Wawa Hongye and Yutong took action. Chapter 169. Primordial Demons. These mermen were all Tier 2 members of the Dark Race. They couldn't withstand a single blow from the Apocalypse Legion. Not long after, all these mermen were dead. Yi Li stood straight, his face still expressionless. Then they continued to walk towards the island. This time there was no resistance on the sea, and they successfully landed on the island. This island was bare and devoid of plants. A stone platform suddenly appeared in front of Yi Li. On the stone platform, there was a black and quaint treasure chest that emitted golden light. Yi Li didn't expect it. He had thought that there were still a few levels, but he didn't expect that the stone platform had come out. Last time, during the trial of the dragon-slaying blade, Yi Li opened the treasure chest and obtained 3 golden pills. Ada and the others directly jumped from a Tier 4 zombie to a Tier 6 zombie. Yi Li smiled casually, thinking that it couldn't be bad either this time. Then Yi Li slowly walked to the stone platform. After reaching the stone platform, he slowly placed his hands on the dark and quaint treasure chest. Without any hesitation, Yi Li opened the treasure chest. In an instant, a dazzling light came. After the dazzling light disappeared, Yi Li looked at the treasure chest, which contained a skill book. It was obvious that this skill book was from a long time ago. There were 4 words on it: Primordial Demon / Primordial Demon / an S-grade skill. With a single slash, 3,000 Godfiend phantoms will be slashed out. Wherever they go, everything will be turned into ashes, and this technique can be upgraded to SSS level. It was an S-grade skill? And it could be upgraded to the SSS level. This was too terrifying. Do you want to practice the Primordial Demon / Yes. Yi Li slowly said. Start cultivating Primordial Demon / IO %, 30%, 60%, 100%. Primordial Demon / has been successfully cultivated. Because the Primordial Demon / is compatible with the Ancient Devil Tome, the host's current strength has already exceeded that of a 6th tier evolved being. Congratulations, host, for becoming a Tier 7 evolved being. Next, the host will obtain a super treasure chest. Do you want to open it? Yi Li thought that cheats were offered too frequently, weren't they? Open it. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the exclusive skill for zombies, snowflakes and light energy impact. Snowflakes, grade skill. After upgrading to S grade, snowflakes can fill the sky, and every snowflake has an attack effect. Light energy impact, unlevel skill. After upgrading to S level, light can pierce through the sky and earth. It was just like whatever he wanted would come. Hongye and Yutong were weaker in the Apocalypse Legion. But now that they had these 2 skills, they were evenly matched with other zombies in strength. Without thinking too much, Yi Li fused the snowflakes into Hongye's body and the light energy impact into Yutong's body. The Heavenly Tower wants to acknowledge you as its master. Do you agree? Agreed. As long as the Heavenly Tower recognized him as its master, the Heavenly Tower wouldn't disappear and could always be used by him. The Heavenly Tower has recognized you as its master, 10%, 30%, 60%, 100%. The Heavenly Tower has successfully acknowledged you as its master. Yi Li was in a good mood. He and the Apocalypse Legion had both reached the 7th tier, which meant that they could do whatever they wanted in the cities under the jurisdiction of the Huangjiang Bay City. Immediately Yili retreated from the trial of the Heavenly Tower. At this moment he was in an unknown small city. This place was still within the range of Annan Bay City. Yili didn't think too much about it and led the Apocalypse Legion towards the Huangjiang Bay City. Chapter 170. A zombie hunting team. Yili led the Apocalypse Legion to a small town not far from the Huangjiang Bay City. The streets of this town were full of zombies, but unfortunately these zombies were not alive at all but lying on the streets in pieces. The scene in front of him was really creepy, as if a big battle had happened not long ago. Yili was a little curious and walked forward. After swallowing the python gallbladder in the West Mountain Burial Mound and obtaining the Heavenly Spirit Eyes, Yili's vision reached a terrifying level. After only a few steps he heard the roars of zombies. Roar, roar. However, these zombies didn't discover him. Instead, they were fighting a group of human genetic warriors. There were 10 human genetic warriors in this group. They were all wearing the same ink-black clothes with a golden word embroidered on their backs. Kush. Yili took a look. These genetic warriors were all Tier 1 evolved beings, and the zombies they faced were all level 3 to level 4 zombies. It was obvious that this was a team hunting zombies. There were such teams in every base city. As long as they hunted zombies, they could gain additional points on the scoreboard. The higher the level of the zombies they hunted, the higher the additional points. The points obtained from hunting zombies could be exchanged for prizes from the special exchange organizations in the base cities. Haha, as long as one kill these zombies I can exchange for a D-grade skill one dreamed of. Me too. As long as I can exchange for the skills I want, my strength can rise to another level. I think we'd better be careful. One wonder if there are any mutant zombies in this town. Soon, Kush team killed hundreds of ordinary zombies, and all 10 of them had happy smiles on their faces. Yili looked bored. He had thought that something interesting would happen. However, Yili thought that since this road led to the Huangjiang Bay City anyway, he should tell them not to hunt zombies and leave the remaining zombies for him to synthesize. As the saying went, those who do not act for themselves will be condemned by heaven and earth. Immediately Yili led the Apocalypse Legion to slowly walk towards Kush team. Captain, I think we should return to the base city. After all, we've been out for so many days, said a bald man in his 30s. Well, let's go back first. After we exchange for the skills we want, we can continue to hunt zombies, said the captain of Kush team. As soon as he finished speaking, Kush team was about to leave. But at this moment one of the team members seemed to have discovered something. His entire body was trembling violently as he pointed at a place and shouted, "Captain? Captain, zombies, there are zombies." The other 9 team members were stunned. They thought that it was good to have zombies. They would just kill them by the way. But when they looked in the direction of the trembling team member's finger, they were all scared out of their wits. Well, Tier 7 zombies? 4 Tier 7 zombies. The 10 members of Kush team were dumbstruck. They had even forgotten how to escape. However, Yili slowly walked over with his Apocalypse Legion. He looked casual and carefree. With the realm of the 10 people in Kush team, they naturally couldn't see Yili's realm, but they could see the level of the zombies. Red eyes. What else could they be but Tier 7 zombies? Oh my god, run! The captain of Kush team trembled in fright. He was so scared that he peed his pants. Chapter 171. Horrified Kush team. The captain of Kush team peed his pants in fright, but how could he care about peeing at this moment? Staying alive was the most important. These were 4 Tier 7 zombies. The strongest existence in the Huangjiang Bay City, Elder Su Changfeng, was only a Tier 7 evolved being. Now 4 Tier 7 zombies had appeared. At the front of the 4 Tier 7 zombies was an unfathomable human. No. This was definitely not a human, but an unfathomable member of the Dark Race. Only the Dark Race members could control zombies, and there were 4 Tier 7 zombies. They couldn't imagine how strong this Dark Race member was. Just as Kush team was about to use all their strength to escape, Yili activated the swift steps and instantly disappeared. When he appeared again, Yili had already arrived in front of the 10 people of Kush team. Ali. Seeing this, the 10 people of Kush team all screamed in fright and fell limp to the ground like seeing evil ghosts. They all looked different, but one thing was the same. They were all horrified. "You. What do you want?" The captain looked at Yili in horror. The 10 members of Kush team knew very well that their lives were in Yili's hands. As long as Yili waved a hand, they would die on the spot. "Are you very afraid?" Yili said lightly. The 10 people in Kush team were not only afraid, but also extremely frightened. They dared to swear that even if the sky collapsed at this moment, they wouldn't be so afraid. This was because the sky collapsed in an instant. But Yi Li and the 4 level 7 zombies might torture them terribly. Ada by Wawa Hongye and Yutong also came to Yi Li. At this moment, the 10 people of Kush team couldn't say anything. They all looked at Yi Li in horror. By the way, which base city are you from? Yi Li slowly asked. The captain of Kush was shocked and didn't dare to hide anything. We are from the Huangjiang base city. Yi Li's handsome face was still calm. He really didn't understand why they were so afraid. He just wanted to ask a few questions. Was it necessary? Or was it that Yi Li was a suffocating existence in the first place? My lord, please let us go. The captain looked at Yi Li pleadingly. When did I say that I would kill you? Yi Li said lightly. As soon as he said this, the 10 people of Kush team shivered. They would never have thought that Yi Li would say such a thing. Huh. Yi Li suddenly turned his head and looked back. Then he put on a leisurely smile. He really didn't expect that there would be a member of the dark race in this palm-sized town. Since there was one, he might as well kill it by the way. Giggle? Creepy laughter suddenly sounded. Dozens of humanoid mantis monsters flew over. These humanoid mantis monsters were all Tier 3 dark race members. One didn't expect there to be so many humans. We can have a full meal. Yes, one haven't eaten a human in a long time. I can't help drooling at the thought of the delicious taste of human beings. Humans, don't run. We're coming. The more than 20 humanoid mantis monsters were extremely smug because in their opinion, Yi Li and the Kush team were already their food. Unfortunately, when Ada by Wawa Hongye and Yutong turned around, they didn't think so. Chapter 172. Let's go together. Ada by Wawa Hongye and Yutong turned around. When the more than 20 Tier 3 humanoid mantis monsters saw this scene, they were horrified. But they had no time to stop now because their speed was too fast just now. What should they do now? Tier 7 zombies. Stop. What's wrong with this damn speed? Stop. More than 20 humanoid mantis monsters used all their strength and finally stopped. Unfortunately, Ada and the others had already arrived in front of them. Boom. Ada threw out the earth-shattering fist. Coupled with the attack of wind, rain, lightning and thunder, this punch even cracked the space. The more than 20 Tier 3 humanoid mantis monsters didn't even have the time to scream before they turned into nothingness, not even leaving their ashes. As the saying went, one should never provoke someone he shouldn't. Yi Li's handsome face was as calm as water, but the 10 people in Kush team froze like clay sculptures. Their eyes widened even more than a bull's, and their mouths opened so wide that they could swallow an extra-large bowl. More than 20 Tier 3 dark race members had disappeared just like that? They really couldn't imagine the horror of Tier 7 zombies. Did you just say that you're from the Huangjiang Bay City? Yi Li looked at the 10 people of Kush team and slowly spoke. The people of Kush team nodded quickly like rattled drums. They knew very well that if Yi Li was displeased at all, they would definitely die a horrible death. Honorable existence, we are from the Huangjiang Bay City. The captain of the Kush team hurriedly replied. It was time for Yi Li to go to the Huangjiang Bay City. He looked at the captain and said, let's go together. What? Hearing this, the 10 people of Kush team felt as if a bolt of lightning had struck their heads. They had thought that they were already shocked enough just now, but now they realized that not only were they wrong, but they were completely wrong. This powerful member of the dark race wanted to go to the Huangjiang Bay City with them? Oh, could it be? The 10 members of Kush team suddenly thought of an astonishing possibility, which was that this powerful member of the dark race was going to attack Huangjiang Bay City. It was because this powerful member of the dark race had 4 Tier 7 zombies and could control 4 Tier 7 zombies, so his strength was naturally unfathomable. Are you surprised? Yi Li looked at the 10 people of Kush team indifferently. The 10 members of Kush team looked at each other in bewilderment. Shouldn't they be surprised? Don't ever be surprised because everything I do is enough to surprise you for 3 days and 3 nights. Yi Li slowly said. The 10 members of Kush team trembled. They knew that their lives were already in Yi Li's hands. At this moment, they had no choice but to take Yi to the Huangjiang Bay City. Yi Li put the Apocalypse Legion into the system space. He didn't want to expose his Apocalypse Legion so quickly in the Huangjiang Bay City. Immediately, Yi Li followed the 10 people of Kush team to the Huangjiang Bay City. After passing by some towns on the way, Yi Li and Kush team came to a city that Yi Li had never been to. My lord, after this city we can reach the Huangjiang Bay City, but there are many zombies in this city. Do we need to take a detour? As soon as Kush said so, he regretted it. Wasn't this a powerful member of the dark race? The dark race could control zombies. Dieter my ass. Chapter 173. Is this the last meal? Yili had never been to this city, but the roads to the Huangjiang base city extended in all directions. The entire outer city surrounded the main city, and there were 24 city gates. Let's go, Yili said leisurely. At this moment, the sun was already setting. The setting sun was as red as blood, dyeing half of the sky red. The sky seemed to be full of fiery clouds, looking extremely shocking. The 10 members of the Kush team panicked when they heard that. Yili was a member of the dark race and wasn't afraid of zombies, but they weren't. Although they were a team hunting zombies, there were too many zombies in this city. If they went in, they would definitely be doomed. Yili certainly wouldn't care about their thoughts. Since there were many zombies in this city, he might as well synthesize them. Seeing Yili move, the 10 members of the Kush team could only bite the bullet and follow him. This city was called Xing City, a heavily infected area. After arriving in Xing City, Yili went to a tree and sat on it. The Kush team was stunned, not understanding what Yili meant. You must be hungry, Yili said slowly. The 10 members of the Kush team paused. Yes, they were indeed hungry. If others asked if they were hungry, they would naturally think of giving them food. But the person sitting under the tree was a powerful member of the dark race. Who could expect this member of the dark race to give them food? The Kush team was horrified because they guessed that Yili might let them do some unsightly things. For example, eating zombies to fill their stomachs. Unfortunately, even if they thought about it 100 times, 1,000 times or even 10,000 times, they wouldn't expect Yili to throw 2 boxes of food over. They were stunned. They swore they were really stunned. A dark race member gave them food? This was probably the first time since zombies appeared in this world. Yili released the Apocalypse Legion from the system space and asked them to lure the zombies over. Why aren't you eating? Eat quickly. You won't have a chance to eat later. Yili slowly said. But his words were misunderstood. Yili meant that when the zombies came over, they would probably be too shocked to eat. But the Kush team didn't think so. They thought that this was their last meal. The other 9 members of the Kush team all looked at the captain, who smiled bitterly. Let's eat. Even if we die, we'll die after eating our fill. Then the 10 people of the Kush team began to eat. They began to cry as they ate. Boo-hoo, boo-hoo. At this moment, the voices of countless zombies entered their ears. Hearing the roars of countless zombies, the 10 members of the Kush team hurriedly looked in all directions, only to be horrified. 1,000 zombies. No, thousands of zombies were rushing over from all directions. The 10 people from the Kush team were as pale as white paper. All their strength seemed to have been drained by something as they retreated weakly. They had thought that Yili would kill them, but they didn't expect it. Yili actually called over so many zombies to eat them. Yili remained expressionless. When thousands of zombies rushed over, he gave an order. Ada and the others began to attack and countless zombies fell. Yili leisurely opened the synthesized grid in his mind and began to synthesize these fallen zombies. Chapter 174. Star Boots. More than 3,000 zombies were ordinary zombies between level 2 and level 3. It was much easier for Yili to synthesize zombies now than before. As more and more zombies were synthesized by Yili, the 10 people of the Kush team were more and more shocked. What was going on? They had never even heard of it before, let alone seen it. As the number of zombies was decreasing, the level of the zombies was increasing. Not to mention these 3,000 zombies, when the Dark Race members led 100,000 zombies to attack Anan Base City, Yili synthesized more than 20,000 zombies. So what if there were 3,000 zombies? Soon Yili synthesized all the more than 3,000 zombies. And he created a Tier 2 male zombie and a Tier 2 female zombie. Yili thought that it was not bad. He opened the system space and found that there was still a Tier 3 male zombie and a Tier 3 female zombie in the system space, but he couldn't synthesize them yet. These zombies disappeared? The captain of the Kush team was shocked. They clearly saw that there were thousands of zombies, and the 4 Tier 7 zombies were fighting them. But all the zombies had disappeared just like that? At this time, the sun had completely set and night had fallen. Yili thought that he'd better stay in Xing City for a night and go to the Huangjiang base city tomorrow. Let's sleep here for the night. Well, go to the Huangjiang base city tomorrow, Yili said. The 10 members of the Kush team looked at each other. They knew that Yili was not asking for their opinion, but an order that they couldn't refute. However, these 10 people were very stunned. They had thought that Yili called these zombies over to eat them, but they didn't expect it to be like this. Could it be? Was this powerful member of the Dark Race a good person? The 10 members of the Kush team couldn't help but think so. A member of the Dark Race who was willing to give them food and made so many zombies disappear. They didn't believe that he wasn't a good person. The captain looked at Yi Li, who was sitting under the tree, and felt that his face was a little hot. He had indeed wrongly judged a gentleman. Yi Li asked Ada to guard him at night and then fell asleep. The next day the sun shone on Yi Li's face. As he opened his eyes, the system prompt rang in his mind. Zombie treasure chest X6. Yi Li opened the zombie treasure chest. Obtained 500 gene points, 500 strength points, 500 speed points and 500 defense points. Obtained the exclusive zombie equipment, Star Boots. Star Boots, an exclusive equipment for S-grade zombies. After wearing it, one kick can shatter oceans and break mountains. Yi Li secretly smiled. Wasn't this prepared for Baiwawa? With Baiwawa's Qilin foot plus the Star Boots, his combat power would definitely be improved by a level. Without thinking too much, he fused the Star Boots into Baiwawa's body, and Baiwawa's right foot instantly became majestic. Roar! Roar! Hearing this voice, Yi Li smiled faintly. Why were there always zombies for him to synthesize? There were thousands of zombies again. Yi Li was a little puzzled. He didn't ask Ada and the others to attract these zombies. These zombies actually came out on a large scale. It seemed that they were gathering somewhere. In this direction. It seemed to be the way to Pan City. Thinking of this, Yi Li sneered. Was the level 7 spirit soul in Pan City finally going to attack? Chapter 175. Kush headquarters. Su Yao is coming. Yi Li thought that the zombies in the surrounding cities of the Huangjiang base city should be all rushing to Pan City. Since he slaughtered thousands of dark race members in Pan City, the 6th-tier skeleton undead escaped, and then a 7th-level spirit soul came from Pan City. He just wanted to snatch the dragon-slaying blade in his hand. Now that the dragon-slaying blade had recognized him as its master, if they wanted to snatch the dragon-slaying blade, they had to kill him first. Attack! Yi Li ordered the army of the Apocalypse Legion. As soon as he finished speaking, Ada, Baiwawa, Hongye, and Yutong instantly shot out. More than 3,000 zombies were weak, pitiful, and helpless. How could they resist the attacks of 4 Tier 7 zombies? When luck came, it simply couldn't stop. More than 3,000 zombies, no more no less, happened to be synthesized into a Tier 2 male zombie and a Tier 2 female zombie. Yi Li synthesized them with the Tier 2 male zombie and the Tier 2 female zombie yesterday into a Tier 3 male zombie and a Tier 3 female zombie. There was still a Tier 3 male zombie and a female zombie in Yi Li's system space. Yi Li continued to synthesize them. In this way, a Tier 4 male zombie and a Tier 4 female zombie were produced in the end. Zombie. But they were like nothing in front of this powerful member of the dark race at all. The 10 members of the Kush team were shocked. They dared to swear that they would never forget what happened yesterday and today. Let's go, Yi Li said slowly, his handsome face still expressionless. Then Yi Li went to the Huangjiang base city. In the outer city, Yi Li put the Apocalypse Legion into the system space. The 10 members of the Kush team looked at Yi Li and swallowed. They had guessed that Yi Li came to the Huangjiang base city to attack it. Don't talk nonsense or play tricks when we go in later. Otherwise, you know the consequences. Yi Li looked at the Kush team and slowly said. The 10 members of the Kush team were shocked and quickly shook their heads like rattled drums. Then Yi Li followed the Kush team into the Huangjiang base city. On the streets of Huangjiang base city, people were still coming and going, not realizing that the zombies were about to attack the city. Honorable existence, our Kush headquarters is just ahead. Do you want to go in and take a look? The Kush team looked at Yi Li carefully. Kush was the general name of the hunting teams in the Huangjiang base city. There were more than a dozen teams in total, and the team with Yi Li now was Kush Team 2. Aguang, why are you still here? Go back to the headquarters. Master Su Yao is coming to the headquarters. At this time, a Tier 1 evolved being walked over and said to the captain of the Kush Team 2. After that, this Tier 1 evolved being quickly ran away. The captain was shocked. Master Su Yao is coming? Honorable existence, since you're not going, well, leave first. The captain looked at Yi Li and said. As soon as he finished speaking, Kush Team 2 quickly walked towards Kush's headquarters. Wait. Just as Kush Team 2 took a step forward, Yi Li stopped them. The 10 people of Kush Team 2 were shocked. Captain Aguang turned around and looked at Yi Li in fright. I'll go with you, Yi Li said slowly. He didn't expect that the Kush zombie hunting team was led by Su Yao. This was really interesting. Then Yi Li followed Kush Team 2 to Kush headquarters. When he arrived at the hall of Kush headquarters, there were already more than 100 genetic warriors waiting inside. Chapter 176. The desperate plea of Kush Team 2. Most of the genetic warriors in the Kush headquarters hall were Tier 1 evolved beings, with only a few second-tier evolved beings. When over 100 first-tier evolved beings gathered together, it was undoubtedly a formidable force. Yili came here just to see what Suya was doing in Kush. If Suya was here, it meant that the siege of the dark race and zombies hadn't begun yet. With the intelligence network of the Huangjiang Bay City, it was impossible for them not to know that a large horde of zombies was assembling towards Pan City. Hey, isn't this Guang? Why are you just arriving now? A slightly harsh voice entered Yi Li's ears. Kush Team 2 Captain, Guang, frowned when he heard this somewhat grating voice, but he had no mental capacity to deal with such matters at the moment. Now, a powerful dark race member was right beside them, and this formidable dark race member also possessed 4 7th-tier zombies. If this powerful dark race was willing, they could all die. Guang had no doubt about the extent of Yi Li's terrifying power. The man speaking appeared to be in his 30s, of medium build, and a hint of arrogance on his face. Team 1's captain is going to embarrass Guang again. This should be quite a spectacle. Guang and Lu Qianyu have never gotten along. This time, Lu Qianyu will probably make Guang feel utterly ashamed. Haha, you're right. Enough talking. Let's watch. Naturally, Lu Qianyu was the speaking man, the captain of Kush Team I, a second-tier evolved being. Lu Qianyu was taken aback and didn't look at Guang but at Yi Li instead. Guang, is this a civilian you picked up in some small town? A playful look appeared on Lu Qianyu's face. The members of Kush Team 11 were terrified upon hearing this. Lu Qianyu, shut your mouth. Guang quickly exclaimed, afraid of provoking Yi Li's displeasure. Lu Qianyu chuckled, TM just saying Guang. Isn't this just an ordinary person no matter how you look at it? Is it worth making such a fuss? Lu Qianyu was just a second-tier evolved being. Finding out about Yi Li's strength was almost impossible for him. Lu Qianyu, one told you to shut up. Shut up now. At this point, Guang had cursed Lu Qianyu 18 times over in his heart. He thought, you're in for a beating. Don't you dare involve me. The genetic warriors in the hall were all entertained by this scene. They couldn't miss such a good show. In the face of Lu Qianyu's anger, he shrugged indifferently. Since you want say 111, have to ask myself. After saying that, Lu Qianyu looked at Yi Li. Kid, were you picked up by Guang in some small town? A faint smile appeared at the corner of Yi Li's mouth as he responded slowly. What do you think? Yi Li spoke slowly. Thump. Suddenly, a thump echoed and all the members of Kush Team 2 knelt before Yi Li. The most esteemed presence, it's none of my business. Please spare us. Guang trembled with fear as he spoke to Yi Li. Seeing this scene, all the genetic warriors in the Kush hall were dumbfounded. They couldn't understand why the members of Kush Team 2 were kneeling on the ground. They were even calling him the most esteemed presence, and begging for his mercy. Was that necessary? No matter how they looked at it, Yi Li was just an ordinary person. After a moment of bewilderment, Lu Qianyu snapped back to his senses and disdainfully looked at Guang kneeling on the ground. Guang, you're truly useless. You actually got scared by an ordinary person. Yet Guang acted as if he hadn't heard Lu Qianyu's words at all. He continued to desperately plead before Yi Li. Chapter 177. Demonic Aura Suppression. Not only did Lu Qianyu think Guang was useless, but all the genetic warriors in the Kush hall also felt that Guang was utterly embarrassing. Lu Qianyu snorted coldly and then looked at Yi Li. I'm starting to get curious. Why is Guang so afraid of you? Do you think you're qualified to talk to me? Yi Li smiled inwardly, thinking that these ants simply had no idea how high the heavens were and how vast the earth was. Lu Qianyu's eyebrows furrowed upon hearing this, never expecting that Yi Li would dare to speak to him in such a manner. Brat, you're the first one to talk to me like this. Do you want to know what fate awaits you? Lu Qianyu stared at Yi Li. All the genetic warriors in the Kush hall shook their heads. They knew well that since Yi Li had offended Lu Qianyu, he was doomed. No one can determine my fate. But I can decide the fate of many, including you, Yi Li spoke slowly. Lu Qianyu burst into laughter as if he had heard the most hilarious joke ever. Ha! You crack me up. Did you all hear what he just said? The genetic warriors in the Kush hall couldn't help but laugh too. They found Yi Li's words incredibly amusing. You don't believe me? Yi Li looked at Lu Qianyu coldly. Believe you? Lu Qianyu snorted again. For me to believe, the heavens would have to fall. Yi Li smiled faintly and then activated the ancient devil tome. At this moment he had cultivated the second level of the ancient devil tome. The terrifying demonic aura of the second level was like a nightmare for these low-level evolved beings. In an instant, everyone in the Kush hall widened their eyes and time seemed to be frozen. Beads of sweat the size of beans continuously dripped down their faces. Terrified they stared at Yi Li. Their heartbeats had already reached 200 beats per minute. For some reason their souls trembled. They dared not breathe, they really dared not breathe. Silence, a deadly silence. Lu Tianyu felt as if he had entered the depths of hell. No, it was more like he had descended into 180 layers of hell. His soul trembled as he gazed at Yi Li. In this moment he was overwhelmed by fear, to the point that he even wanted to die. He genuinely wanted to die. Yi Li looked calmly at Lu Tianyu and after a few seconds he slowly spoke, "Now, do you think one can determine your fate?" As he finished speaking, Yi Li retracted the demonic aura of the second level of the ancient devil tome. All the genetic warriors in the Kush hall felt as if being reborn, the suffocating pressure dissipating. They began to breathe heavily. However, Lu Tianyu was left utterly limp on the ground, paralyzed with fear. He never would have imagined that Yi Li could be so terrifying. In this moment he finally understood why Guang had told him to shut up and why he had knelt before Yi Li. The genetic warriors in the Kush hall looked at Yi Li with terror. They had thought that Yi Li would be in for a terrible fate after offending Lu Tianyu, but they couldn't have imagined that the situation would turn out like this. Yi Li gazed calmly at the collapsed Lu Tianyu. He hadn't wanted to cause any trouble, but who could have predicted that someone would court death? "Would you mind if one disabled one of your legs?" Yi Li spoke slowly. Upon hearing this, Lu Tianyu immediately paled in fear. You can't do that. Lord Su Yao is about to arrive. He's a 6th-tier evolved being, and his father is Su Changfeng, the strongest in Huangjiang Bay City. If you touch me, Lord Su Yao won't spare you. Chapter 178. Do you mind if I disable one of your legs? Su Yao. Yi Li sneered. When Su Yao arrives, ask him if he dares to save you. Who's talking about me? Suddenly, a deep voice entered everyone's ears. This voice was no one else's but Su Yao's, a 6th-tier evolved being. Before he arrived, his voice already did. The genetic warriors in the Kush hall immediately turned their gaze towards the entrance. After a few seconds, a man in a suit strode in with great confidence. Seeing Su Yao, Lu Tianyu acted as if he had grasped a lifeline, shouting loudly, "Lord Su Yao, please save me. Please save me." Su Yao paused for a moment. He knew about Captain Lu Tianyu, and it was evident that Lu Tianyu's current state of collapse indicated he had experienced great fear. Furthermore, everyone from Team 2 was kneeling on the ground. Soon, Su Yao's gaze landed on the person before Lu Tianyu. This person had his back turned to him. Su Yao suddenly found the figure very familiar, but he didn't have time to think about it. Lu Tianyu shouted again. "Lord Su Yao, this person intruded into the Kush headquarters. I've told him that you're about to arrive, but he actually said that you're nothing special." Lu Tianyu wasn't as afraid as before because Su Yao had arrived. He thought that Yi Li couldn't do anything to him now that Su Yao was here. What? Su Yao's anger flared upon hearing this. In the Huangjiang Bay City, who didn't know he was the leader of Kush? Someone dared to barge into Kush headquarters? Wasn't that a slap in his face? Su Yao strode up to Yi Li wanting to see who exactly Yi Li was. Who dared to be so arrogant? But then, a cold shiver ran from Su Yao's rear end to his head. The arrogance he had just exhibited vanished without a trace. Mr. Yi? Even if Su Yao only had a day left to live, he wouldn't believe that the person who had intruded into Kush headquarters was Yi Li. Upon hearing Su Yao refer to the intruder as Mr. Yi, the genetic warriors in the Kush hall were all dumbfounded. Lord Su Yao called that person Mr. Yi? Mr. Yi, that name sounds familiar. Where have I heard it before? Right, Huangjiang Academy, isn't that the same Mr. Yi? Once this was said, all the genetic warriors in the Kush hall drew in a cold breath. On that day at Huangjiang Academy, Mr. Yi had killed 2 recruiters from Cloud Peak Academy. This incident wasn't a secret among the genetic warrior community of Huangjiang Bay City. However, the highest authorities in Huangjiang Bay City had issued orders that the events at Huangjiang Academy should not be disclosed. Only the genetic warriors knew it, while the common citizens of Huangjiang Bay City remained unaware. Now that even Lord Su Yao was calling that person Mr. Yi, it didn't take a genius to figure out that the Yi Li they had assumed was just an ordinary person was, in fact, the protagonist Mr. Yi from that day at Huangjiang Academy. A wry smile appeared on the faces of the Kush warriors. They were mocking the existence that was actually as towering as a mountain. "Mr. Yi, how did you end up here?" Su Yao said, somewhat embarrassed. However, Yi Li didn't answer Su Yao. He still looked calmly at Lu Tianyu. "Do you mind if I disable one of your legs?" While others could connect Yi Li to Mr. Yi, Lu Tianyu wasn't ignorant either. At this moment he was filled with regrets. Lu Tianyu desperately looked at Su Yao for help, but Su Yao didn't even glance his way. He had offended Mr. Yi. Disabling one of his legs was simply too minor a punishment for him. Chapter 179. Zombie Legion gathering at Pan City. Lu Tianyu was too terrified to utter a complete sentence at this point, his face twisted with fear. Seeing Lu Tianyu stuttering, Su Yao's expression turned cold as he stared at him. "Lu Tianyu, Mr. Yi merely wants to disable one of your legs. Why are you still hesitating? If it were up to me, I'd take your life. How dare you offend Mr. Yi?" Lu Tianyu was shocked upon hearing this and quickly said to Yi Li, "Mr. Yi, am willing." Yi Li slowly raised his finger, and a terrifying golden spiritual light appeared on it. The genetic warriors in the Kush Hall all held their breaths, watching Yi Li swish. Suddenly, a sharp sound cut through the air, followed by a horrifying scream. Lu Tianyu's leg was struck by the terrifying golden spiritual light and instantly broke. The genetic warriors in the Kush Hall listened to the spine-chilling screams and exchanged glances. They were simultaneously relieved that they hadn't offended Yi Li, otherwise they knew what their fate would be. "Take this waste away." Su Yao spoke coldly. The moment his words fell, a few genetic warriors immediately carried Lu Tianyu out. "Mr. Yi, it's my lack of discipline. I request." Su Yao's words were interrupted by Yi Li. "Coming to the Kush headquarters, you must have something to discuss, right?" Yi Li said calmly. Su Yao was taken aback, looking at Yi Li's composed face. "Mr. Yi, you truly deserve your reputation. You could tell I have something to discuss with just one glance," Su Yao said respectfully. Hearing Su Yao's flattering words, Yi Li's serene face remained unchanged. "Please tell me," Yi Li said slowly. Su Yao's expression turned serious. He surveyed the genetic warriors in the Kush Hall. "This time, Pan City has gathered hundreds of thousands of zombie soldiers and tens of thousands of dark race members. Originally you wouldn't need to join the battle. However, the situation is dire now. All genetic warriors in Huangjiang Base City must participate," Su Yao said sternly. Upon hearing this, the genetic warriors in the Kush Hall collectively gasped. Hundreds of thousands of zombie soldiers and tens of thousands of dark race members? If this was an attack, could Huangjiang Base City hold on? Seeing the shocked expressions on the faces of the genetic warriors, Su Yao's voice turned cold. "What are you afraid of? Does Huangjiang Base City seem weak to you?" Huangjiang Base City might be small, but it was much stronger than Annan Base City, with defense forces several times more powerful. "All Guang, take them all to the eastern outskirts of the city and be prepared to counter the zombies at any time." Su Yao tiered Kush Team 2's captain, All Guang. "Yes." All Guang promptly responded. Guang then led all the genetic warriors in the Kush Hall out of the Kush headquarters. The entire hall was left with only Yi Li and Su Yao. "Mr. Yi, now Su Yao didn't finish his sentence. Instead he looked at Yi Li tentatively. "Let's go to the Su family," Yi Li said slowly. He thought about how ambitious that 7th-tier spirit soul was, gathering such a massive army of zombies. It was undoubtedly terrifying. They were merely after his dragon-slaying blade. Unfortunately, even if the dark race had a strategy, did he have no countermove? Strong or weak, would Huangjiang Base City fall or would the dark race retreat? Only time would tell. Soon Yi Li and Su Yao headed toward the Su family. Chapter 180. A flash of cold light, the sword is drawn. Not long after, Yi Li and Su Yao arrived at the Su family's residence. The members of the Su family were naturally very familiar with Yi Li. Upon seeing him, their eyes revealed a hint of longing. Of course, they all wished to become someone like Yi Li. However, Yi Li was like a towering peak standing before them, out of their reach. Su Yao led Yi Li into the main hall of the Su family, only to find that many powerful genetic warriors were in a meeting. These genetic warriors were the strongest members of various major families in Huangjiang Base City. The highest authority in Huangjiang Base City was held by the top 3 families: the Su family, the Lu family, and the Wu family. "Father, Mr. Yi has arrived." Su Yao's voice interrupted the intense discussion among the people. Of course, everyone knew who Yi Li was. They all turned their gazes to him. Su Lao was taken aback. He looked at Yi Li and realized that Yi Li had become a 7th-tier evolved being. He clearly remembered that when Yi Li took Qingxue away he was only a 6th-tier evolved being. But in just a few days he had become a 7th-tier evolved being. Such speed of cultivation was truly astonishing. Mr. Yi. Su Changfeng quickly got up to greet him. Seeing Su Changfeng stand up, the other family heads also rose in respect. Mr. Yi, this time the zombie horde has gathered at Pan City. Before Lu Xinghe, the head of the Lu family, could finish his sentence, Yi Li interrupted him. I'm already aware. Do you want to know why that 7th-tier spirit soul gathered so many zombies to attack Huangjiang Bay City? Yi Li looked at the people and spoke slowly. Everyone was taken aback by his words. Wasn't the dark race gathering so many zombies to conquer Huangjiang Bay City? Mr. Yi, are you saying the zombies don't intend to conquer Huangjiang Bay City? Su Lao looked at Yi Li with confusion. Yi Li shook his head slowly. Of course not. The reason that the 7th-tier spirit soul gathered so many zombies is to find the dragon-slaying blade. What? The family heads in the Su family's hall were shocked beyond belief. Dragon-slaying blade? Naturally they knew what the dragon-slaying blade was, one of the 10 great divine weapons. However, it had been so long since anyone had found the dragon-slaying blade that they had almost forgotten about the existence of the 10 great divine weapons. Mr. Yi, are you saying the dragon-slaying blade is in our Huangjiang Bay City? Elder Su asked Yi Li. That's right. Yi Li nodded. I wonder if ATR Yi knows where the dragon-slaying blade is? Elder Su continued to ask. The family heads in the Su family's hall all looked at Yi Li, eager to hear his response. After a few seconds of contemplation, Yi Li slowly spoke. Far away, yet right before your eyes. Hiss. The family heads gasped collectively. None of them could have ever imagined that the dragon-slaying blade was in Yi Li's possession. Mr. Yi, the dragon-slaying blade is in your hands? Elder Su was also stunned. Yi Li thought that there was no need to hide it at this point. He took the dragon-slaying blade out from the system space. Clang. In an instant, the illusion of a blood dragon appeared in the Su family's hall, followed by the resounding sound of sword clashes. The family heads widened their eyes, staring at the peerless divine blade in Yi Li's hand. With just a single glance they felt a bone-chilling sensation. The dragon-slaying blade. This is the dragon-slaying blade. Elder Su's voice even trembled a bit. Yi Li smiled. Do you want to know why the recruiters from the Cloud Peak Academy thought Qingxue colluded with the Dark Race? Chapter 181. Astonished, the people in the Su family's hall were taken aback by Yi Li's words. They didn't understand why Yi Li would say such things. Mr. Yi, are you suggesting? Lu Xinghe, the head of the Lu family, looked at Yi Li thoughtfully. Yi Li didn't say much. Instead, he released the Apocalypse Legion from the system space. Ada, Bai Wawa, Hongye, and Yutong stood beside Yi Li. They all had different appearances, but there was one thing they had in common. Their eyes were all red. How was that possible? Shocked, utterly shocked. The family heads in the Su family's hall were so frightened that they quickly retreated. Suddenly, 4 7th-tier zombies appeared before them. How could they not be scared? Well, Su Yao and Lu Xinghe widened their eyes. Even in their wildest dreams, they would never have expected to witness such a scene. Yi Li wasn't surprised by their shock. After all, for 7th-tier zombies suddenly appearing would shock anyone. Now you understand why the recruiters from the Cloud Peak Academy thought Qingxue colluded with the Dark Race, Yi Li said calmly. Elder Su was also frightened. He couldn't believe his eyes as he looked at Yi Li. Mr. Yi, are you really from the Dark Race? Everyone knew that only the Dark Race could control zombies. Elder Su wasn't the only one who thought this. All the family heads in the Su family's hall believed Yi Li was from the Dark Race. However, they clearly remembered that when Yi Li was at Huangjiang Academy, he used golden aura, which corresponded to the talent color of an SSS-level genetic warrior. Everyone knew that the Dark Race didn't have genetic talents. The Dark Race? Yi Li smiled faintly. Do you think I, Yi Li, would belong to the lowly Dark Race? As soon as these words were spoken, the family heads in the Su family's hall were all astonished. They quickly looked at Yi Li. Yes, how could an SSS-level genetic warrior who could use golden aura possibly belong to the Dark Race? But if he wasn't from the Dark Race, how could he control zombies, especially 4 7th-tier zombies? Mr. Yi, are you a human or? Elder Su looked at Yi Li. Fundamentally, he naturally didn't believe that Yi Li was from the Dark Race. Yi Li had saved his life, and at Huangjiang Academy, Yi Li had even used a golden light that the Dark Race didn't possess. But if Yi Li was a human then? "I'm neither human nor from the dark race. I'm a demon," Yili said slowly. When Yili transmigrated here he was originally a human. However, since cultivating the ancient devil tome he was no longer just human. A demon? The family heads in the Su family's hall exchanged glances. This was the first time they had heard the term demon. "Mr. Yi, what is a demon?" Su Yao felt relieved after knowing that Yili wasn't from the dark race. He also understood that Yili didn't have any ill intentions. Otherwise there was no need to explain so much to them. After thinking for a moment, Yili said, "You don't need to delve into what a demon is. Just know that demons are a level higher than the dark race." As soon as he said this, the family heads in the Su family's hall all understood. "I understand, Mr. Yi. Demons and the dark race can both control zombies, but demons are good while the dark race is evil," Su Yao said. The family heads found Su Yao's words not only reasonable but also logical. Elder Su stroked his white beard and nodded, a look of relief appearing on his face. "Let's talk about the crisis of Pan City," Yili said slowly. Chapter 182. A document. Upon hearing Yili's words, Elder Su invited him to take a seat. After the family heads had all settled back into their seats, Elder Su turned to Yili and said, "Mr. Yi, currently there are tens of thousands of dark race members gathered in Pan City. According to our intelligence, most of these dark race members are in the second or third tier. Their leader is naturally a 7th-tier spirit soul, accompanied by 12 6th-tier dark race members and 124 5th-tier dark race members. At present, there are approximately 300,000 zombies in Pan City, all of them at levels 2 and 3. Our defense work is already in place, and we believe the 7th-tier spirit soul will soon issue the tier to attack the city." Yili thought about the massive horde of 300,000 zombies, which would provide a perfect opportunity for a frenzied synthesis. However, he wasn't sure if Huangjiang Base City could hold up against them. After all, he was currently the strongest combat power in Huangjiang Base City. If he chose to synthesize zombies, he wouldn't be able to fight. Even if he had the synthesized zombies attack other zombies, it would only be a temporary solution. The immense horde of zombies would quickly overpower the zombies he had produced. "By the way, Mr. Yi, the power balance ratio between Huangjiang Base City and the dark race in Pan City is 3 to 7, Elder Su said, looking at Yili. 3 to 7. Everyone knew how vast the disparity in strength was. However, the advantage was that the dark race was the attacking party. Huangjiang Base City's outer defenses were strong, making it easy to defend and difficult to breach. Yili smiled faintly. There would probably be a massive zombie synthesis when the time came. Even if that was impossible, he could still unleash a fierce onslaught. During the trial in the Heavenly Tower, Yili obtained the Primordial Demon Slash and S-level attack skill. He had yet to use it, but he would probably use it this time. As the Primordial Demon Slash was activated, 3,000 divine and demon illusions appeared. The scenery in that instant had begun to appeal to Yili. Speaking of the Heavenly Tower's trial, Yili had forgotten about the tower. In a critical moment he had activated the tower, directly suppressing the dark race like Mount Tai. "Mr. Yi, did you come to Huangjiang Base City this time to help us?" Lu Xinghe looked at Yili carefully and asked. "Yes." Yili nodded. When the people in the Su family's hall heard this from Yili, they all displayed looks of joy. With Yili and the 4 7th-tier zombies joining the fray, the overall strength of their side undoubtedly increased significantly. Elder Su also smiled, looking at Yili. "Mr. Yi, both Suner and Xiaoqin have gone to the Cloud Peak Academy. By the way, Mr. Yi, do you know where Qingxue went?" Lu Xinghe suddenly asked. After Yili agreed to help Huangjiang Base City, the atmosphere in the hall had become more lively. The family heads even began to chat casually. "Qingxue is safe with my friend," Yili said calmly. At that moment, a man in military attire appeared at the door. He shouted, "Report." Su Yao let the man in military attire enter. After he came in, he handed a document to Elder Su and then left the hall. The family heads all became solemn. They wanted to know if the dark race was preparing to attack the city. Elder Su looked at the document, his expression changing from solemn to grim. Clap. Elder Su slammed the table abruptly, his voice filled with anger. "Xiaotian, one never thought you would actually join the dark race." The family heads were all surprised by Elder Su's outburst, looking at him. They naturally knew that Elder Su had more to say. Chapter 183. Attack on Huangjiang Base City. Xiaotian. Xiao Tian was the former head of the warrior alliance in Huangjiang Base City. After the defeat of the zombies' attack on Huangjiang Base City, Xiao Tian had the idea to join the dark race. Xiao Tian shared this idea with Elder Su, but naturally Elder Su disagreed. The conflict escalated, and they eventually engaged in a heated fight. In that battle, Elder Su initially had the upper hand, but Xiao Tian used a treacherous move at a critical moment, causing Elder Su to be seriously injured. If it weren't for Yi Li, Elder Su would probably have met his demise by now. "Dad, what's going on?" Su Yao asked Elder Su. "Umph." Elder Su gave a cold snort and said, "According to the report, Xiao Tian has arrived in Pan City and is preparing to attack the city alongside the dark race." The family heads couldn't contain their anger upon hearing this. Huangjiang Base City was initially peaceful, but now the Warrior Alliance headquarters wanted to establish branch alliances in various major base cities. Xiao Tian became the head of the Warrior Alliance in Huangjiang Base City, effectively placing him above the top 3 families. The top 3 families were already unhappy with Xiao Tian, and now he was even attempting to align himself with the dark race. How could they tolerate that? "Elder Su, since Xiao Tian is preparing to attack us with the dark race, then we shouldn't let him leave alive." Lu Xinghe spoke coldly. Yi Li smirked secretly, thinking that things were getting more and more interesting. 3 days later, the 7th-tier spirit soul of the dark race in Pan City finally led the attack on Huangjiang Base City. Tens of thousands of dark race members and a horde of 300,000 zombies launched an assault on Huangjiang Base City. The dark race had aerial creatures known as the Strange Bird Tribe, which could spew dark fire. On the ground there were giants, although they weren't excessively large due to their respective levels. The massive zombie horde employed a trapezoidal formation tactic, with zombies piling up against the city walls. Huangjiang Base City sounded the alarm, and millions of civilians took refuge in enormous shelters. Countless laser cannons on the outer walls of Huangjiang Base City fired incessantly. In the sky, fighter jets clashed with the strange bird tribe of the dark race. The number of zombies was simply overwhelming. The colossal horde charged like a landslide, causing the entire Huangjiang Base City to be on high alert. All the genetic warriors of Huangjiang Base City were frantically slaughtering zombies piled up on the walls. Boom! A strange bird spat out dark fire, sending the chilling flames hurtling towards the outer city wall. Hundreds of guards stationed there were instantly reduced to ashes by the flames. Suddenly, dozens of strange birds spewed dark fire, all aimed at the outer city wall. "Ada, make it rain," Yi Li commanded coldly. As he spoke, Alda triggered the rain element of his wind snow thunder lightning abilities. Instantly, heavy rain poured down, extinguishing the dark fire in an instant. Yi Li wielded the dragon-slaying blade, pointed his toe on the ground and leaped into the air. Flame blade technique. With a heavy slash, the dragon-slaying blade descended, sending countless fiery blades toward the strange birds. Dozens of strange birds were instantly engulfed by the fiery blades. There were simply too many strange birds in the sky, and one fighter jet after another began to fall. The horde of 300,000 zombies stretched the battlefront, making it difficult for the defending forces on the outer wall to manage the situation. Countless laser cannons were destroyed, and many zombies had already climbed onto the outer city walls. Soon the sound of cries echoed through the air. Yi Li smiled faintly as he remained in midair. These zombies were truly insane, but he would make them understand what true insanity was. But then Yi Li lifted the dragon-slaying blade high and activated the second level of the ancient devil tome. The blade exuded a dense aura of demonic energy. Primordial demon slash. Yi Li's voice seemed to have lasted endless epochs, resonating through the sky. As the blade fell, 3,000 divine and demonic illusions rushed fiercely toward the zombies beneath the outer city wall. Chapter 184. Earth-shattering battle, boom. The 3,000 divine and demonic illusions rushed toward the zombies beneath the outer city wall. In an instant, a deafening explosion rocked the area. The soldiers on the outer city wall were knocked to the ground, and countless zombies were sent flying. At this moment, the zombies below the outer city wall turned into nothingness, leaving a huge crater in their wake. Primordial Demon Slash, an S-level attack skill, enjoy. The Primordial Demon Slash tore a massive gap in the outer city wall. Yi Li then gave a command to the Apocalypse Legion. Attack. With the command given, Yi Li and the Apocalypse Legion leaped down to the area below the outer city wall. Yi Li stood in the center with Ada and Hongya on his right side, and Bai Wawa and Yutong on his left side. They spaced themselves out with tens of meters between each member. Today Yili led the Apocalypse Legion with each member guarding a specific area. They were going to hold the line one by one, making it virtually impenetrable. Meanwhile, the massive horde of zombies and the dark race continued their assault. Upon seeing this situation, Elder Su hurriedly shouted, "All genetic warriors of Tier 4 or above, follow me down. The military will provide cover." Soon, a large group of genetic warriors arrived below the outer city wall. Seeing Elder Su and the others coming down, Yili pondered whether he should let Ada and the others deal with the zombies first, and then he would synthesize them. Without further ado, Yili gave Ada and the others a secret command. Except for the Apocalypse Legion and himself, he couldn't synthesize zombies that others knocked down. At this point, the dark race and the horde of zombies had already reached the area below the outer city wall. The Apocalypse Legion and the military of Huangjiang Base City engaged in a fierce battle against the dark race and the zombies. The scene was absolutely brutal. Yili opened the synthesis grid in his mind and began synthesizing zombies like mad. 1,000, 2,000. Yili's synthesized zombies increased in number rapidly, but he didn't order them to attack. Facing such a massive horde of zombies, these 2,000 zombies would be reduced to dust in no time. The laser cannons, laser guns and machine guns on the outer city wall were firing relentlessly at the zombies, and fighter jets in the sky shot down numerous strange birds. Many aircraft were also destroyed by the strange birds. On top of a mountain, this mountain provided a clear view of the battlefield below. Two figures stood on the mountain top, or rather, one was a member of the dark race and the other was a human. They were leisurely watching this earth-shattering battle unfold. The member of the dark race had no physical form and appeared as a soul-like entity, dressed in a black robe. If he had a scythe in his hand, he would resemble a real Grim Reaper. The human beside him wore a simple Chinese tunic suit, his hands folded behind his back, and his expression was composed. The member of the dark race was undoubtedly the leader of the dark race in Pan City, a 7th-tier spirit soul. The human beside him was none other than the former head of the Warrior Alliance in Huangjiang Base City, Xiao Tian. "Brother Xiao, did you see the power of the dragon-slaying blade?" the 7th-tier spirit soul leader said with a sinister smile. "Yes, I did. As long as we obtain the dragon-slaying blade and offer it to the Dark Temple, our future will be a bright one," Xiao Tian chuckled. Yili still hadn't taken action. In his mind, he continued to synthesize zombies frantically. At this moment, he had synthesized over 3,000 zombies. He knew he needed many more. The dark race and the immense horde of zombies were attacking the genetic warriors of Huangjiang Base City, and many genetic warriors had already turned into zombies. Seeing that Huangjiang Base City was struggling to hold on, Yili wielded the dragon-slaying blade and unleashed several terrifying slashes, accompanied by the roar of a dragon. Countless zombies were instantly killed. Then he began synthesizing zombies. Chapter 185. The counterattack begins. Finally, Yili had synthesized 10,000 zombies, forming a significant force. At this point, the powerful dark race arrived beneath the outer city wall, as they had realized that the zombies couldn't breach the defenses. The genetic warriors of Huangjiang Base City were instantly hit with numerous casualties. Ah! The sounds of miserable screams echoed ceaselessly. Yili closed the synthesis grid in his mind, a cold glint flashing in his eyes. He raised the dragon-slaying blade, and demonic energy swirled around it. A flash of cold light, followed by a dragon-like slash. Yili unleashed 13 consecutive slashes. Each of these 13 slashes was incredibly terrifying. After these 13 slashes, all the dark race members in front of Yili vanished. Following this, Yili ordered over 10,000 zombies to counterattack. At this moment, the intense battle had lasted for a day and a night. Yili leaped into the air. The demonic energy of the second level of the primordial demon slash swirled around him as he held the dragon-slaying blade. He then executed another primordial demon slash. In an instant, countless shadowy figures filled the sky. The 3,000 divine and demonic illusions surged downward, each illusion akin to a nuclear warhead, bombarding the area below ferociously. Seeing this situation, Elder Su ordered hundreds of thousands of soldiers from Huangjiang Base City to leave the city and engage in a life-or-death struggle against the dark race and the zombies. In order to defeat them, they had to make the dark race afraid and let them know that the human world wouldn't tolerate their invasion. To capture the thief, capture the king first, was always a classic tactic. In midair, Yili activated the heavenly spirit eyes, exploring the most powerful dark race members. Soon he found the strongest dark race member on a mountaintop not far away, a 7th-tier spirit soul. Beside the 7th-tier spirit soul, he also discovered a 7th-tier evolved being, and he could easily deduce that it was Xiao Tian. He noticed that the 7th-tier spirit soul and Xiao Tian were both watching the battlefield. Yili smiled. He also spotted a 6th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead and several other 6th-tier dark race members. During the time when he and the Apocalypse Legion were massacring the dark race members in Pan City, the 6th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead managed to escape. This time he would use this 6th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead as a sacrifice for his blade before taking down the 7th-tier spirit soul. None of them could escape. Suddenly Yili activated swift steps and instantly appeared before the 6th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead. The 6th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead was currently in discussion with several 6th-tier dark race members, contemplating whether or not to join the battle. He would never have dreamt that Yili would suddenly appear in front of him. In Pan City, Yili and the Apocalypse Legion had slaughtered over 1,000 dark race members. The 6th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead had narrowly escaped. He knew that Yili had the dragon-slaying blade and told it to his leader, the 7th-tier spirit soul. Upon hearing that the dragon-slaying blade had appeared, the 7th-tier spirit soul, the strongest dark race member in the jurisdiction of Huangjiang Base City, immediately rushed to Pan City. The 6th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead knew all too well how terrifying Yili was. He looked at Yili in shock. Yili, you. He simply couldn't fathom why Yili had suddenly appeared in front of him. Big brother, the dragon-slaying blade is in this brat's hands. Let's kill him quickly and take the dragon-slaying blade. A 6th-tier giant coldly sneered. The 6th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead thought that there were 5 dark race members on his side, all at the 6th tier while Yili was alone. With this in mind, the 6th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead's fear subsided. Yili, hand over the dragon-slaying blade and I can give you a swift death, the 6th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead said coldly. Chapter 186. Where do you think you can retreat to? Big brother, why waste time talking to him? Just snatch the dragon-slaying blade from him. As the words fell, the 6th-tier giant several yards tall lunged towards Yili. Yili sneered coldly. In his eyes, a 6th-tier dark race member was nothing but an ant. How dare a 6th-tier dark race member charge at him? Swish. Yili swung his blade, and the massive body of the 6th-tier giant was instantly cut in half at the waist. The 2 halves of its body fell to the ground and green blood gushed out wildly. How was that possible? The 6th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead and the other 6th-tier dark race members widened their eyes. They couldn't believe that Yili had slain the 6th-tier giant with a single slash. Don't be afraid, you will end up the same way, Yili said calmly. The 6th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead was horrified upon hearing this. He knew that Yili wasn't making empty promises. He no longer wanted to seize the dragon-slaying blade from Yili's hands. All he wanted was to escape. However, he couldn't escape from the palm of Yili's hand. As the 6th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead fled frantically, Yili calmly said, "Flame blade technique." As the words left his mouth, countless blades of fire were unleashed from the dragon-slaying blade towards them. The 6th-tier heavy sword-wielding undead and several other 6th-tier dark race members faced only one fate, becoming souls under the blade of the dragon-slaying blade. They didn't even have a chance to let out a scream before being consumed by the flames. By now, all the attacking 6th-tier dark race members had been annihilated. Most of the remaining dark race members were between the 2nd and 4th tiers. They were no match for the warriors of Huangjiang Base City. The genetic warriors of Huangjiang Base City and the hundreds of thousands of soldiers had driven the dark race members into retreat. They were now fueled by their boiling blood, having forgotten the concept of death. All they knew was that they had to kill the dark race members and zombies. This was because they had never felt so exhilarated in their lives. Yili activated the heavenly spirit eyes, noticing that the 7th-tier spirit soul and Xiao Tian, standing atop the mountain, were both astonished. No matter how they imagined the situation, the 7th-tier spirit soul and Xiao Tian could never have expected this outcome. They had assumed that they wouldn't need to make a move to breach Huangjiang Base City's defenses. They believed that they would easily obtain the dragon-slaying blade when the time came. Unfortunately, they had overlooked one thing. That was Yili and his Apocalypse Legion. "Sir, what should we do now?" Xiao Tian looked at the 7th-tier spirit soul. The situation was clear at this point. The dark race members and zombies were in full retreat. The 7th-tier spirit soul clenched his teeth and showed a trace of reluctance on his face. After a few seconds he finally spoke, "Retreat." However, just as the seventh-tier spirit soul and Xiao Tian were about to start moving, they heard an extremely domineering voice. "Retreat? Where do you think you can retreat to?" The seventh-tier spirit soul and Xiao Tian were startled and quickly followed the direction of the voice. They saw a young man with a jade-like countenance approaching on the wind. The young man held a blade that gleamed with a cold light. The blade's body was engraved with the image of a five-clawed blood dragon. What kind of blade other than the dragon-slaying blade would this be? Who else could this person be but Yi Li? The seventh-tier spirit soul and Xiao Tian were utterly astounded. Given their realms, they should have detected Yi Li's presence. Yet Yi Li had suddenly appeared before them. How could they not be shocked? However, the seventh-tier spirit soul didn't choose to look at Yi Li. Instead, his gaze fixated on the dragon-slaying blade in Yi Li's hand. The dragon-slaying blade. One will search high and low only to find it when one least expects it. The seventh-tier spirit soul sneered coldly. Xiao Tian looked behind Yi Li and realized that Yi Li didn't have any backup. A smile appeared on his silver basin-like face. Chapter 187, Fighting Two Alone, Why Are You Laughing? Yi Li was a bit puzzled. As soon as he said this, the seventh-tier spirit soul and Xiao Tian laughed even harder. "We're laughing because you don't even realize that death is looming over you." Xiao Tian sneered at Yi Li. "Human, if I'm not mistaken, you should be a seventh-tier evolved being, right? Seventh-tier evolved beings are indeed strong, but it's a pity. We are all at the seventh tier as well. Why do you think we're laughing?" The seventh-tier spirit soul giggled. Hee hee. Yi Li shook his head. Why did people always think they could kill him? Apart from being a seventh-tier evolved being, he was also an SSS-level genetic warrior. With the dragon-slaying blade and the second level of the ancient devil tome, fighting two seventh-tier evolved beings wasn't much of a challenge in his eyes. Enough, human. Hand over the dragon-slaying blade, and I might consider giving you a painless death, the seventh-tier spirit soul said with an outstretched hand. Yi Li pondered for a moment, then spoke. A sixth-tier heavy sword-wielding undead said the exact same thing to me just now. Do you know what happened to him? Upon hearing this, the seventh-tier spirit soul and Xiao Tian's expressions turned cold. Brat, I see you won't cry until you see your coffin. Xiao Tian shouted coldly. Yi Li smiled faintly. Unfortunately, even if one see the coffin, one won't shed a tear because I will never need a coffin. The seventh-tier spirit soul and Xiao Tian were enraged by Yi Li's words. They stared intently at him. Human, do you think I'm as useless as that sixth-tier heavy sword-wielding undead? The seventh-tier spirit soul's anger resonated in his voice. With a swish, the seventh-tier spirit soul extended a hand that resembled a soul. It then expanded to several meters in size and lunged at Yi Li. However, Yi Li remained unmoved, as if he hadn't noticed a soul-like hand reaching out to grasp him. Yet, just as the soul-like hand was about to seize Yi Li, two beams of golden light suddenly shot out from his eyes. These terrifying beams of golden light struck the soul-like hand, causing it to vanish in an instant. What? The seventh-tier spirit soul and Xiao Tian were both shocked. It wasn't that Yi Li's attack was exceptionally powerful. They had simply never seen this kind of attack method before. Just stand in one place and shoot out two beams of golden light? Was it really that simple? I didn't expect you to be an SSS-level genetic warrior. Xiao Tian stared at Yi Li and said in a deep voice. The golden light that Yi Li had used was a color unique to SSS-level genetic warriors. Xiao Tian, having come from the Warrior Alliance headquarters, had decent knowledge. However, even if you are an SSS-level genetic warrior, you still have no chance against two seventh-tier evolved beings. Xiao Tian continued to shout. Yi Li found this somewhat dull. He had no idea where Xiao Tian's courage came from to say such things. In that case, wouldn't it be a sin if Yi Li didn't reveal his strength? Come over here. Yi Li beckoned to the seventh-tier spirit soul and Xiao Tian with a crooked finger. Upon seeing this, the seventh-tier spirit soul and Xiao Tian were driven into a frenzy. As seventh-tier powerhouses, when had anyone dared to provoke them with such a gesture? Suddenly, the seventh-tier spirit soul and Xiao Tian rushed toward Yi Li. Yi Li sneered coldly. He intended to show these two seventh-tier evolved beings what true fear was. With a flash of determination, he activated the second level of the ancient devil tome. The dragon-slaying blade instantly became entwined with a devilish aura. Chapter 188. This is what you get for provoking me. Flame blade technique. The dragon-slaying blade descended, unleashing countless flames that burst forth from its edge. Both the 7th tier Spirit Soul and Xiao Tian were in the 7th tier, so dodging the flaming blade technique wasn't too difficult for them. After evading the flame blade technique, Xiao Tian threw a heavy punch and purple fist shadows came rushing towards Yi Li. In an instant, the mountaintop was filled with ghostly shadows, exuding cold light, spiritual energy and sinister aura. Yi Li faced the two of them alone and fought for over 20 rounds. After all, the higher the level, the wider the gap. There was an insurmountable chasm between the 6th tier and the 7th tier. Even if Yi Li possessed countless techniques and abilities, it was still impossible for him to instantly kill two 7th tier evolved beings. The 7th tier Spirit Soul and Xiao Tian grew more and more anxious. They couldn't have anticipated that Yi Li would be so formidable. After all, they were both 7th tier powerhouses. Swish, swish, swish. Yi Li swung his blade again, unleashing 13 strikes. These 13 strikes were as formidable as the famous 13 sword strikes of martial art novels, each one releasing an astounding power. The 7th tier Spirit Soul and Xiao Tian were taken aback, and they quickly dodged, using almost all of their strength. Finally, they managed to evade the 13 strikes. However, just as they were catching their breath, they realized that Yi Li wasn't finished yet. They saw Yi Li raise the dragon-slaying blade high and activate the 2nd level of the ancient devil tome. Terrifying devilish energy entwined around the blade. Before the blade had even descended, the devilish energy began to suppress the 7th tier Spirit Soul and Xiao Tian. What's with this pressure? The 7th tier Spirit Soul and Xiao Tian were both horrified. They were both at the 7th tier, so why was Yi Li able to suppress them? They didn't understand. They truly couldn't comprehend it. But they would never have the chance to figure it out. This was because Yi Li's dragon-slaying blade had already fallen. In the moment the blade descended, Yi Li enunciated a few words, "Primordial Demon Slash." As the words fell, the blade fell. 3,000 godly and demonic phantoms burst forth, creating an earth-shattering explosion on the relatively small mountaintop. Yi Li smiled faintly. This was what they got for provoking him. Yi Li, ding. Congratulations to the host for killing two 7th tier enemies. You have gained a chance to draw a random reward. Will the host use it? The system's voice echoed in Yi Li's mind. Yi Li chuckled. Another chance for a lucky draw. Yes. Immediately, a virtual roulette wheel appeared in his mind and began to spin. Congratulations to the host for gaining the chance to upgrade all skills. Will the host use it? A delighted expression appeared on Yi Li's face upon hearing this. The chance to upgrade all skills was simply too incredible. Yes. Upgrade of all skills initiated. IO%, 30%, 60%, IO%. Upgrade of all skills completed. Yi Li checked his skills. Healing Art, max level. Flaming Blade Technique, S grade. Ancient Devil Tome, 3rd level. Primordial Demon Slash, SS grade. After upgrading all his skills, Yi Li felt that his overall strength had increased several times over. Although he hadn't reached the 8th tier evolved being yet, if all his skills had been upgraded just now, killing 7th tier Spirit Souls and Xiao Tian would have been as easy as slaughtering pigs and dogs. Oh right, the zombies. Only now did Yi Li remember that there were still many zombies left to synthesize. He quickly activated the swift steps and arrived at the battlefield below. At this moment, many of the dark creatures and zombie groups had already escaped, leaving behind the zombies synthesized by Yi Li and those that had lost their combat capabilities. Chapter 189. End of the Great Battle. After synthesizing 10,000 zombies, Yi Li didn't continue synthesizing more. He ordered the remaining nearly 4,000 zombies to attack the massive horde of zombies. Currently, less than 4,000 zombies remained from the initial 10,000. For the current Yi Li, this number seemed pitiful. Fortunately, there were still many zombies on the ground that hadn't died yet. Yi Li could determine which zombies had been defeated by his Apocalypse Legion. After opening the synthesis grid in his mind, Yi Li synthesized the zombies that the Apocalypse Legion had defeated. In the end, he synthesized a total of over 8,000 zombies with a roughly equal number of males and females. After synthesizing these 8,000 zombies, he synthesized a Tier 4 male zombie and a Tier 4 female zombie. In his system space, he already had a Tier 4 male zombie and a Tier 4 female zombie, so he continued the synthesis. Immediately after, Yi Li created a Tier 5 male zombie and a Tier 5 female zombie. He had already informed the leaders of the Huangjiang base city that his terrifying ability could make zombies attack other zombies. After placing the Tier 5 male and female zombies into the system space, Elder Su led the warriors of Huangjiang Bay City over. Their faces bore joyful smiles because they had won the battle, a complete victory. Mr. Yi. Elder Su took the lead, addressing Yi Li with respect. Soon all the leaders of Huangjiang Bay City followed suit, addressing Yi Li respectfully. If it weren't for Yi Li, Huangjiang Bay City would have likely fallen by now. Yi Li's actions were akin to holding up a collapsing building and reversing a doomed situation. Mr. Yi, you are Huangjiang Bay City's great benefactor. Elder Su looked at Yi Li and said. Yi Li's face remained unchanged, his eyes calm as he gazed at Elder Su. It's nothing. I just did it by the way. The leaders of Huangjiang Bay City were surprised to hear this. It seemed that Mr. Yi was indeed a remarkable individual. At this moment, Su Yao snorted coldly. It's a pity we didn't encounter the 7th-tier spirit soul and Xiao Tian. Otherwise, we would have extinguished their souls and wiped them out. Yeah, I wonder where they've fled to. It won't be easy to find them now, said Lu Xinghe, the head of the Lu family. Elder Su's expression also grew grave. If the 7th-tier spirit soul and Xiao Tian weren't dead, who knew if they would mobilize the zombies again to attack Huangjiang Bay City? The 7th-tier spirit soul and Xiao Tian you mentioned have already been killed by me, Yi Li said slowly. His words surprised everyone in Huangjiang Bay City. They couldn't believe what Yi Li said. Mr. Yi, are you telling the truth? Elder Su hurriedly asked. Yi Li smiled faintly. I never tell lies. Hearing this, everyone in Huangjiang Bay City let out a sigh of relief. If the 7th-tier spirit soul and Xiao Tian were truly dead, then Huangjiang Bay City could enjoy a period of peace. Mr. Yi, let's return to the city, Elder Su said respectfully to Yi Li. Yi Li nodded, and then everyone followed him back to the main city of Huangjiang Bay City. After reaching Su's residence, Elder Su quickly invited Yi Li to take a seat. After Yi Li sat down, Elder Su looked at him and said, Mr. Yi, one wonder what your plans are for the future? If possible, Elder Su naturally hoped that Yi Li would stay in Huangjiang Bay City. After all, Yi Li was incredibly powerful and could become a pillar of support for Huangjiang Bay City. Chapter 190, Wasteland Zone. People go higher, water flows lower. Yi Li had always considered this saying a classic, and he naturally understood what Elder Su meant. Of course, he wouldn't choose to stay in Huangjiang Bay City. After all, in the context of the entire post-apocalyptic continent, Huangjiang Bay City was quite small. Yi Li remained silent, allowing Elder Su to interpret his intentions. Seeing Yi Li's silence, Elder Su felt a slight disappointment, but he quickly accepted it. He knew that someone like Yi Li would never stay in such a small place as Huangjiang Bay City. Mr. Yi, outside of Huangjiang Bay City, there is a wilderness area known as the Wasteland Zone. In this zone, there are countless animals infected by the zombie virus, numerous zombies, squads hunting zombies, and wilderness warriors, all of whom enjoy exploring the Wasteland Zone. Elder Su looked at Yi Li cautiously, unsure if recommending this place would make him happy. Yi Li found the idea interesting and thought it was worth a visit. Yi Li stayed in Huangjiang Bay City for 3 more days. The 3 major families were urging the people to repair the outer city to prevent further zombie attacks. After 3 days, Yi Li bid farewell to Elder Su and left Huangjiang Bay City. During these days, Yi Li had also gathered information about the Wasteland Zone. It was an expansive and boundless area. Some parts of it were extremely dangerous and were referred to as the forbidden zones of life. In the Wasteland Zone, in addition to dark race, zombies, and animals infected with the zombie virus, there were also many human organizations. Yi Li activated the swift steps and headed towards the Wasteland Zone. The distance between the Wasteland and Huangjiang Bay City was quite far. After a full day and night of travel using swift steps, he finally arrived at the Wasteland Zone. It was important to note that Yi Li had been using swift steps along the way. With its ability to cover 10,000 miles during the day and 8,000 miles at night, one could imagine how far he had traveled in a day and a night. Upon arriving at the Wasteland Zone, Yi Li was greeted by a vast plain. It was currently noon, and there were many animals infected by the zombie virus tearing each other apart on the plain. Several scattered zombies, perhaps having gotten lost or for some other reason, were mercilessly devoured by these infected animals. Yi Li thought that only by living in this Wasteland Zone one could constantly feel danger, unlike the civilians in the Bay Cities who had no idea how precious life was. Boo-hoo! Big brother, don't die, don't die. Suddenly, a very young crying voice reached Yi Li's ears. Yi Li turned his gaze to the source of the sound and saw a 5 or 6-year-old girl crying loudly. Beneath the girl lay a man in his 20s. The man wore long robes, his hair cascading down. Blood kept flowing from his mouth. Around the girl were a dozen or so men. Most of them were second-tier evolved beings, with only one third-tier evolved being among them. Haha, Achi, I asked you to submit to me but you refused. Now you know the consequences of offending me, don't you? A man with a gruesome scar on his face laughed triumphantly. This man seemed to be the leader of the group of second-tier evolved beings, and he was a third-tier evolved being. Humph, you could have escaped by yourself but you dared to take Miss Luoli with you. You want to escape death now. The man continued speaking. The injured young man under the girl's body stared at the speaking man and said firmly, "Even if I die, I won't let you touch Miss Luoli." Upon hearing this, the man burst into laughter. Achi, if you're about to die in the next second, how will you protect Miss Luoli? Chapter 191. The one who will kill you. Yili observed this scene with a detached gaze. He hadn't expected to encounter such a situation in the wasteland zone. Upon hearing the conversation, the young girl quickly shielded the injured youth and stared at the third-tier evolved being who led the group. Do not harm Achi, big brother. Although the girl looked to be only around 5 or 6 years old, she was already a level 5 awakened being. Her talent was truly terrifying. The leader of the group sneered, "Miss Luoli, do you think you're still the Miss of Flame? Now Flame's leader is Mr. Han." You. Upon hearing what he said, the girl named Luoli seemed a bit disoriented. Miss Luoli, Mr. Han has always had feelings for your sister. If it weren't for your sister pleading with Mr. Han to spare you, do you think you would still be standing here talking to me? The man continued. Achi struggled to stand up from the ground. A horrifying blood hole was visible on his body, and he held a gleaming cold sword in his hand. I said, "You're not allowed to touch Miss Luoli." Achi stared at the man, his eyes turning red. Swish. Suddenly, the leader of the group thrust a knife into Achi's body. "Brother Achi, no." Luoli cried out, tears streaming down her face. As Yili watched this scene, an idea suddenly struck him. The 4 zombies in the Apocalypse Legion were all 7th-tier zombies. It was time to train a new one. Achi used a sword. Could he be trained into a swordsman? Swordsman Achi. The name alone sounded incredibly imposing. With this thought in mind, a look of excitement appeared on Yili's face. Yes, he could indeed use his healing ability to save Achi. However, he never considered himself a good person. He only did what he wanted to do. What reason did he need for his actions? Without delay, Yili activated swift steps and hurried toward Achi. Achi's life force was rapidly draining. If he didn't reach him soon, Achi would die. If Achi died, how could Yili train him? The speed of swift steps was incredibly fast. In just an instant, Yili arrived by Achi's side. He used his heavenly spirit eyes to check on Achi and found that he still had some time before his life completely faded away. During this time, Yili would eliminate all these dozen or so genetic warriors. As Yili appeared by Achi and Luoli's side, the leader and the other genetic warriors took 3 steps back in shock. They would never have dreamed that a person would suddenly appear. Who are you? After steadying himself, the leader of the group stared at Yili and asked coldly. The one who will kill you, Yili said slowly, his expression calm like water. Upon hearing these words, the leader's expression grew solemn. He knew that someone with such terrifying speed couldn't be an ordinary person. Brother, we are from Flame. You should know what kind of organization Flame is. The leader hoped to use their affiliation with Flame to make Yili reconsider, but unfortunately his plan not only backfired but also failed miserably. Yili shook his head slowly. I don't know what kind of organization Flame is, but I do know that you will die soon. With these words, all the genetic warriors widened their eyes. They had realized that the young man in front of them was incredibly dangerous. This young man's eyes were filled with killing intent, and he was full of a domineering aura. Chapter 192, Swordsman Achi Flame is. The leader's words were cut short before he even had a chance to continue, as his body was penetrated by the heavenly spirit eyes. Although the attack power of the heavenly vision wasn't particularly great, the same applied to one young finger. However, for these low-level evolved beings, the heavenly spirit eyes was an S-class attack skill. The leader fell heavily to the ground, his eyes wide open with disbelief, as if he couldn't believe that he had died just like that. The other dozen or so genetic warriors were terrified by this scene. A third-tier evolved being was killed instantly, so what chance did they, as second-tier evolved beings, have? They wanted to escape, truly wanted to escape. However, no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't escape their fate. Death was the only thing waiting for them. Oh. Ah. Suddenly, a series of agonized screams rang out. Yili's expression remained as calm as water. It was as if nothing had happened. He slowly turned around to look at the young girl and the injured youth. Luo Li's little face was filled with fear. She couldn't tell if Yili was a good person or a bad person. Thank you, Senior, for saving us, Achi said in a trembling voice. Achi's face had turned as pale as paper. The pain had caused him to break out in a cold sweat. A faint smile appeared on Yili's face. This person before him would soon become the zombie he would cultivate. Follow me and become a member of the Apocalypse Legion, Yili said to Achi. Achi had no idea what Yili meant. He had never even heard of the Apocalypse Legion. I apologize. One don't understand Senior's meaning, Achi weakly replied. Blood continued to flow from his wound, and he didn't have much time left before he would bleed to death. Yili was a very democratic person. He generally wouldn't force others but instead allowed them to choose willingly. He looked at Achi and said, If you die, what will happen to her? The her he referred to was naturally Luo Li. Achi's lips curled slightly, and a bitter smile appeared on his face. Senior, if possible, could you take Miss Luo Li away? Achi's eyes were filled with pleading. His face was becoming even paler and he was losing blood rapidly. Brother Al Chi. Luo Li's little face was covered in tears. Al Chi was her adoptive brother and not affiliated with Flame. Yili looked at Al Chi. He knew that Achi's time was running out. Follow me and I will grant your request. Although Al Chi couldn't understand what Yili meant, he had no other options left. Meeting a human was already a stroke of luck. Why would he refuse? Senior, I agree, Achi said weakly. Yili didn't say much. Instead, he released the Apocalypse Legion from his system space and instructed Alda to bite Al Chi. Alda bit down on Al Chi's arm. The speed at which the 7th-tier zombie's corpse poison spread was truly terrifying. In an instant, Achi became a zombie. From now on, you shall be known as Swordsman Al Chi. Yili slowly spoke. Then he checked Swordsman Al Chi's attributes. Achi, 1st-tier zombie. Zombie ability, none. Zombie attribute, speed. Yili was pleased. The most important attribute for a swordsman was speed. He hadn't expected Swordsman Achi's attribute to be speed. He was really lucky. Chapter 193, Senior, can you save my sister? Luo Li stared blankly at Swordsman Al Chi. Why did it seem like her brother Achi had been resurrected with full health? However, Achi seemed a bit different now. Why did his eyes turn green? And why did Achi look uglier? His face. Suddenly, Luo Li realized something and her eyes widened. Immediately, she burst into tears and pointed at Yili. You turned brother Al Chi into a zombie. Yili didn't pay attention to Luo Li. He continued to look at Swordsman Achi. No matter how he looked at him, he felt that Al Chi was perfect, though his current level was still too low. However, Yili wasn't worried at all. It was just too simple for him to cultivate a zombie right now. Yili had envisioned a scene where the number of zombies in his Apocalypse Legion continued to increase, and they would dominate the world together. That scene must be splendid. Ding. Congratulations to the host for cultivating a new zombie. You have obtained a super treasure chest. Would you like to open it? Open, Yili replied without hesitation. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the zombie-exclusive weapon, the Cleave Sword. Yili was taken aback. He quickly opened his inventory to examine the Cleave Sword. Cleave Sword, S-class weapon. Equipping a zombie with this sword increases their sword intent by tenfold. A powerful swordsman not only had a sword in their hand but also in their heart, not to mention their momentum. The momentum of a swordsman was naturally sword intent. Yili instructed Swordsman Achi to discard the long sword he held and equipped him with the Cleave Sword. The Cleave Sword was a pitch-black sword as dark as ink. It was sharp enough to cut hair and break through metal, looking extremely intimidating. Yili's next step was to upgrade Swordsman Achi's level. Are you a member of the Dark Race? At this moment, Luo Li's voice sounded in Yili's ears again. Yili turned around to look at Luo Li. You're just a little 5th-tier evolved being. How could you understand how vast and boundless the heavens and earth are? HJ11 Luo Li seemed a bit frightened. She stared at Yili with shock but didn't know what to say. Let's go, Yili said slowly. Luo Li watched Yili's departing figure. After a few seconds, she mustered up the courage to say, Senior, can you avenge my father? The bad people killed my father and my sister was captured. Yi Li halted in his steps. He recalled what the leader had said earlier about how her sister begged someone named Han to spare Luo Li's life. Looking at the cultivator's strength just now, Yi Li had a rough idea of what kind of organization Flame was. It was probably a weak organization as insignificant as ants. Now that Yi Li had gained swordsman Achi, he was in a good mood. He turned around slowly to look at Luo Li. Luo Li was only 5 or 6 years old. It was indeed pitiful that she had experienced such an event. But in this apocalypse, how many people were truly free from misery? Lead the way, Yi Li said casually to Luo Li. Luo Li was startled by his words. Her father and sister had both told her that the dark race was evil, and the zombie virus had been created by the dark race. She thought that Yi Li was powerful and didn't seem to harbor ill intentions toward her, so she dared to speak her mind. However, Luo Li never expected that Yi Li would actually agree. She looked at Yi Li's calm face, wondering if the dark race could also have good people. Roar. At that moment, dozens of roars reached Luo Li's ears. Dozens of infected wolves affected by the zombie virus were already approaching them. Chapter 194. Lead the way. These dozens of evil wolves had all been infected by the zombie virus. Their eyes emitted eerie green light, and their sharp fangs gleamed coldly. They looked extremely terrifying. At this moment, dozens of evil wolves had surrounded Yi Li and Luo Li. Yi Li smiled. These wolves seemed to be at the 6th level, yet they dared to appear beside him, completely fearless due to their ignorance. Luo Li's small face was filled with fear. She was only 5 or 6 years old and had never experienced any battles. Roar. Suddenly, these dozens of evil wolves lunged at Yi Li and Luo Li. Ali. Luo Li screamed in fright and quickly closed her eyes. There was no need for Yi Li to take action. These 6th-level evil wolves were too weak, even more insignificant than ants, more like dust. Ada punched and Baiwawa kicked. In an instant, the dozens of evil wolves disappeared without a trace, not even leaving behind their corpses. Luo Li heard the commotion and carefully opened her eyes. She found that dozens of evil wolves had disappeared. Iler's little face was filled with astonishment, but she didn't dare to ask, fearing that she might displease Yi Li. Are you puzzled? Yi Li looked at Luo Li calmly. Luo Li hadn't finished speaking before Yi Li interrupted her. Don't ever feel puzzled. Every action one take will leave you puzzled for 3 days and 3 nights, Yi Li said slowly. Luo Li stared at Yi Li's serene face and suddenly felt that he wasn't a member of the dark race but a god of war from the heavens. Even though she was only 6 years old, she was already captivated by Yi Li. Don't you want to avenge your father and save your sister? Yi Li looked at Luo Li calmly. Luo Li snapped back to her senses upon hearing his words. She looked at Yi Li in shock. Yes. Then why don't you lead the way? Yi Li said slowly. Sure, senior, Luo Li quickly agreed. Soon Yi Li led Luo Li in a certain direction. Wasteland area, a certain castle. The castle wasn't large and its appearance was rather ugly. Inside the hall, a middle-aged man sat on a throne, leisurely playing with his fingers. Luo Yu, your younger sister should be arriving soon, the middle-aged man said casually. In front of the middle-aged man stood a woman who appeared to be in her 20s. She wore casual gray attire, had waist-length hair, and a face as delicate as jade. This woman was Luo Li's older sister, Luo Yu. She coldly stared at the middle-aged man on the throne. She must kill this man. This middle-aged man had killed her father. Originally, her father had been the leader of Flame. However, this ambitious individual before her killed her father and seized the position of Flame's leader. The middle-aged man's name was Han Hai, the leader of Flame Organization, a 5th-tier evolved being. This not-so-large castle was the headquarters of the Flame Organization. Seeing that Luo Yu remained silent, Han Hai smiled lightly. Why do you put yourself through this? Your father was already old. Still, he insisted on passing down the position of Flame's leader to you. Yet, you're only a 2nd-tier evolved being. How could you bear such a heavy responsibility? I explained my reasons to your father. However, he thought one intended to take the position of Flame's leader and wanted to kill me. I had no choice but to fight back. Upon hearing this, Luo Yu's already cold face became even colder. She knew she couldn't show anger right now. Her sister Luo Li was still in their hands. She could only keep her gaze fixed on Han Hai. Chapter 195. Flame Base, Senior. The Flame Base is up ahead. Luo Li pointed to a location with her finger. Following the direction Luo Li pointed, Yi Li noticed a castle not far away. It was called a castle, but it was significantly inferior to a real castle. "Let's go," Yi Li said slowly. Luo Li was taken aback. Although she knew Yi Li was powerful, walking over like this meant they would be facing the entire flame organization. She calculated that with Yi Li, there were only 7 of them. In contrast, the flame organization had several hundred members, all of them genetic warriors. As the saying goes, 2 fists are no match for 4 hands, and even a brave individual cannot withstand a group of wolves. Considering the vast difference in numbers, Luo Li thought that even if Yi Li was a member of the dark race, he wouldn't stand a chance. So, why was he walking straight over? "Senior, the strongest person inside Flame right now is named Han Lai, a 5th-tier evolved being." Luo Li thought it necessary to remind Yi Li. Luo Li had rarely ventured out of the Flame base before and didn't know that Ada and the others were 7th-tier zombies. Upon hearing this, Yi Li inwardly shook his head. Indeed, it was such a pitifully small organization. A 5th-tier evolved being was truly too weak. Yi Li thought that it was a good thing Luo Li reminded him. He had to put Swordsman Achi into the system space, otherwise accidents might happen. After all, Swordsman Achi was only a S-tier evolved being now. Soon Yi Li put Swordsman Achi into the system space. Luo Li was surprised. She clearly remembered that Brother All Chi was just beside her a moment ago. "Lo, did he suddenly disappear? Senior, where's Brother Achi?" Luo Li quickly asked. Yi Li thought this girl really had a lot of questions. "Don't ask so much. Let's go," he said. Then Yi Li slowly walked toward the castle. Luo Li quickly followed. "You should know that I've always liked you. I had no choice but to kill your father. Why do you ignore me?" Hanai Lai looked at Luo Yu. Luo Yu tightly clenched her fist, and her fingernails pierced her skin without her feeling any pain. She knew that she had to endure for now. "By the way, once Liar comes back, let's get married. After all, I've always liked you and you've always liked me." Han Wenlei's face was smug as he smiled. Luo Yu suddenly felt a bit lost. She was only a 2nd-tier evolved being now, while Hanai Lai was a 5th-tier evolved being. The gap between them was like night and day. Could she really take revenge? But, as they say, a debt of blood must be paid in blood. Luo Yu knew she had to kill Han Hai, no matter what price she had to pay. Yi Li led the Apocalypse Legion and Luo Li to the entrance of the Flame base. There were more than 10 S-tier evolved beings guarding the entrance, all dressed in red robes with red scarves on their heads. "Miss Luo Li, you've returned?" a S-tier evolved being said to Luo Li. Yes," Luo Li said with some fear. This S-tier evolved being was then taken aback. Wasn't Luo Li supposed to have been captured and brought back? And the people who went to capture her, why hadn't any of them returned? And there were several unfamiliar faces. When this S-tier evolved being looked at the Apocalypse Legion beside Yi Li, he couldn't even continue his thoughts. The eyes of these 4 zombies were red-eyed zombies, 7th-tier zombies. At this point, the S-tier evolved being took a few steps back. His eyes widened as he yelled, "7th-tier zombies! 4 7th-tier zombies!" Chapter 196. Fear. The other dozen or so men were all S-tier evolved beings. How could they not recognize the levels of the 4 zombies beside Yi Li? 7th-tier zombies, these were 7th-tier zombies. These dozen S-tier evolved beings were so scared that their souls seemed to leave their bodies. Their entire bodies were trembling violently. They wanted to run inside, but they found that their bodies had no strength left. "Leave one alive and kill the rest," Yi Li told Alda. After receiving Yi Li's order, Ada swung his fist forcefully. Boom. After a loud noise, these dozen or so S-tier evolved beings instantly died in misery. Just as Yi Li ordered, one S-tier evolved being was indeed left alive. Luo Li was dumbfounded. She had heard about the levels of mutated zombies. Zombies of level 1 to 10 were ordinary zombies. Those above level 10 were mutated zombies. Mutated zombies included S-tier and 2nd-tier ones. If these were 7th-tier zombies, then wouldn't that mean? And there were 4 7th-tier zombies. By now, Luo Li finally understood why Senior chose to infiltrate the Flame base with such a small group. Luo Li had heard of mutated zombies before, but she didn't know how to distinguish them. If she had known that the eyes of 7th-tier mutated zombies were red, she wouldn't have had her previous thoughts. The one S-tier evolved being who survived was worse off than if he had died. He had reached a level of fear he had never experienced before. He was lying limp on the ground as if all his strength had been drained away. Forget strength, even his soul seemed to have been extracted from his body. If there were a competition for the most frightened person, he would undoubtedly take first place. Scared to the point of wetting oneself? It was nothing. He had already wet himself long ago. This Istir evolved being just hated that he couldn't pee more. At least it would warm up his thighs. Are you scared? Yili looked at the Istir evolved being calmly. This Istir evolved being didn't just fear, he was terrified. His soul was shaken to the core and he was horrified beyond measure. This Istir evolved being couldn't even utter a complete sentence. His teeth were chattering uncontrollably. He didn't want to die. He really didn't want to die. Go in and report. Tell them Yili has arrived, Yili said slowly. The Istir evolved being had thought that he was going to die soon. However, he could never have anticipated that he would be given a new lease on life. He felt as if he had been reborn and quickly scrambled inside. In fact, Yili could have charged in and unleashed a massacre, but he chose not to. Sometimes, instilling extreme fear in someone and then killing them afterward felt more satisfying. You guys stay here and protect her, Yili said before activating the swift steps, disappearing from his original spot. Flame Base, the main hall. Sitting on the throne, Han Hai was puzzled. He wondered why those useless people hadn't brought Luo Li back yet. As long as they brought Luo Li back, he could marry Luo Yu. Of course, possessing Luo Yu was his ultimate goal. Leader. Leader. Suddenly, a panicked shout echoed through the hall. Following this Istir evolved being, Yili hid on a beam above them. He was a 7th tier evolved being. They wouldn't be able to detect him no matter what. Han Hai was taken aback, wondering if something unexpected happened when those useless people were capturing Achi and Luo Li. Chapter 197. Chief, the sky is falling. Han Hai furrowed his brows and glared fiercely at the 1st tier evolved being. Why panic? The sky hasn't fallen yet. The Istir evolved being's hair was disheveled, his whole body dirty, and his pants were wet. Chief, the sky has fallen, the Istir evolved being said fearfully. Once the statement came out, not just Han Hai, everyone in the hall was left stunned. The sky had fallen? Why hadn't they felt a thing? Speak up. What exactly is happening? Han Hai demanded. From his vantage point on the beam, Yili observed Han Hai on the throne. The woman on Han Hai's right should be Luo Li's sister. He wondered if he should launch a sneak attack on Han Hai. After a moment's thought, he dismissed the idea as uninteresting. Chief, a powerful dark race member has arrived outside. He's accompanied by 4 7th tier zombies, and Miss Luo Li is also with him, the Istir evolved being said fearfully. What? When the people in the hall heard this, their eyes widened in shock. A powerful dark race member? For 7th tier zombies? Such a level of power had never been heard of before, not to mention seen. What did you say? Han Hai stared fixedly at the Istir evolved being. A strong sense of disbelief filled Luo Yu's cold face. She couldn't fathom why Lyre would be with a powerful dark race member. Chief, I assure you what one said is true. We need to escape for our lives. Those are 4 7th tier zombies. The Istir evolved being said, his face pale and tearful. Everyone from the Flame organization in the hall was filled with terror. If what the man said was true, there was no way they could withstand 4 7th tier zombies. Escape your damn mother. Han Hai roared angrily. Were you bribed by Luo Yu? Are you intentionally saying this? As soon as these words were spoken, everyone looked at each other, thinking that what Han Hai said made sense. They had never even seen a 7th tier zombie, let alone 4 at once. The Istir evolved being was on the verge of tears. He couldn't understand why the chief didn't believe him. There was no time left. They had to escape immediately. Han Hai sneered coldly, his gaze fixed on Luo Yu. Luo Yu, one didn't expect you to resort to schemes. Luo Yu hadn't bribed the Istir evolved being. She had initially thought his words were a lie. But now it seemed, Humph, if you want to play games with me, I'll play with you to the end, Han Hai said coldly. Yili had reached his limit watching this. These people actually doubted the situation. It was truly maddening. Has the Flame organization always been so keen on wrongly accusing others? Suddenly, a carefree voice echoed through the hall. Han Hai and everyone in the hall were immediately shocked. They frantically searched for the source of the voice, but no matter how they looked, they couldn't find anyone speaking. Don't bother searching. I'm right in front of you, aren't one? The voice entered their ears again. Everyone was pale and horrified as they looked around. When they didn't look, everything was normal. But once they looked, they were all petrified. A moment ago there was clearly no one in the hall, so why was there now a handsome young man? The youth looked calm and composed as he gazed at Luo Yu. Are you Luo Li's sister? Yi Li said slowly. Who are you? Luo Yu was taken aback. Everyone looked at Yi Li wondering if this person was the powerful dark race member the Istir evolved being spoke of. With this thought, everyone was shocked once again. Chapter 198. Believe it or not, you're about to die. It doesn't matter who I am. What matters is whether you're Luo Li's sister, Yi Li said calmly, looking at Luo Yu. Luo Yu was startled. She felt a mysterious power emanating from Yi Li that compelled her to respond. I am her sister, Luo Yu answered. Yi Li didn't continue speaking. At that moment he heard a chilling laughter. The source of the sinister laughter was none other than Han Hai. Is it amusing? Yi Li gazed coolly at Han Hai. To Yi Li's surprise, Han Hai started clapping his hands. Clap, clap, clap. Quite a performance. Did you bribe this first-tier evolved being? You made him say there's a powerful dark race member and 4 7th-tier zombies? I'm curious about your motives, Han Hai said smugly. Han Hai's words made sense, at least that's what the people in the hall believed. Before Yi Li could reply, Han Hai spoke again. Let me answer for you. You're a friend of all Qi. Qi is dead now and you did this to avenge him, right? As for the idiots I sent to capture Qi and Luo Li, one presumed they're all dead at your hands. By the way, I can't discern your cultivation tier, but you've probably suppressed your spiritual power, right? Han Hai's arguments were logical, and the people in the hall found themselves persuaded. Yi Li chuckled inwardly, thinking that Han Hai had missed his calling as a detective. Unfortunately, he didn't need to suppress his spiritual power. He was a 7th-tier evolved being, and could a mere 5th-tier evolved being detect that? Now your scheme has been exposed by me. Aren't you supposed to be at a loss? Why do you seem so indifferent? Han Hai's face took on a sly expression. The genetic warriors of the Flame organization in the hall also laughed. They knew Yi Li's fate was going to be tragic, but to what extent they weren't sure. Luo Yu felt that Han Hai might be right. She looked at Yi Li with some reluctance. After all, Yi Li's actions indirectly helped her. However, the Istir evolved being on the ground didn't laugh. Instead, his terror reached new heights. Suddenly, he saw a faint smile appear on Yi Li's jade-like face. This Istir evolved being fainted instantly. Hee hee. Yi Li smiled slowly at Han Hai. Han Hai was taken aback. He couldn't understand why Yi Li was still able to smile. What are you laughing at? Han Hai stared coldly at Yi Li. Yi Li pondered for a few seconds, then looked at Han Hai and said, Believe it or not, you're about to die. Silence, a deadly silence. Even if they thought for 1,000 years, no one in the hall would have expected Yi Li to say something like this. Luo Yu's icy face also showed confusion. She couldn't understand why Yi Li was speaking so arrogantly. Could it be? He knew he was going to die, so he deliberately said this. Since you're so confident, I'll let you be confident for a moment. One don't believe I'm about to die, Han Hai said calmly, looking at Yi Li. However, as soon as Han Hai finished speaking, Yi Li activated his swift steps and disappeared on the spot. Before anyone could make sense of it, Yi Li had already appeared just a few steps away from Han Hai. Yi Li raised his finger and golden spiritual light surrounded it as he declared, I have a technique that can pierce the heavens. Chapter 199. The death of Han Hai. As the words fell, Yi Li unleashed a pointed attack, and a terrifying golden light pierced through Han Hai's thigh. Han Hai was a 5th-tier evolved being, a realm where Yi Li could easily achieve a quick kill. Unfortunately, Yi Li wanted to instill even more terror. The moment the light pierced through Han Hai fell from his throne. All? Han Hai let out a gruesome scream akin to a pig being slaughtered. The Jin warriors in the hall were petrified, their faces filled with utmost fear as they watched Yi Li. Even Luo Yu stared at Yi Li's back in shock. She couldn't believe Yi Li was actually so terrifying. A 5th-tier evolved being had his thigh pierced through with a single strike. The people in the hall barely had time to process what had happened before Han Hai's earth-shattering scream echoed. Cold sweat poured down their foreheads, and they were already paralyzed with fear. Yi Li's face showed a hint of amusement. He calmly gazed at Han Hai lying on the ground, still screaming like a pig. He spoke slowly, Do you now believe you're about to die? As these words left his lips, Han Hai felt as if he had fallen into an icy abyss. He even forgot the excruciating pain as he stared at Yi Li in sheer terror. Han Hai couldn't even form a complete sentence. He stared at Yi Li in terror and despair. At this moment Yi Li's hair was fluttering in the wind, and his face remained calm. But in Han Hai's eyes he appeared infinitely horrifying. Yi Li looked like a true demon at this moment. Yi Li looked at Han Hai's terrified face with indifference and shook his head inwardly. Ants would always be ants. He slowly raised his finger, and the golden light of spirituality once again wrapped around it. The people in the hall watched in horror as the golden light enveloped Yi Li's finger. They knew that with a single strike Han Hai would meet his demise. "Don't kill me. Please, one don't want to die." At this point Han Hai cared more about his life than the pain he was feeling. He hastily kowtowed to Yi Li begging for mercy. He didn't want to die, not when he had just become the leader of the Flame Fire organization. His future achievements were limitless, and if he died now, in this wilderness where human life was as fragile as grass, true displays of humanity were rare. If Yi Li was still trash at this moment, would Han Hai spare him? A faint smile appeared on Yi Li's face. "I beg you, spare my life, I beg you," Han Hai continued to beg on his knees. Unfortunately, before he could finish his plea, Yi Li's finger had already descended. This one strike was utterly terrifying. As this finger fell, Han Hai's life disappeared from this world forever. His eyes widened more than they ever had before, unable to believe he had died in this manner. In the underworld, a ghost was newly added, but in the mortal realm, there was no more Han Hai. To Yi Li this phrase applied to everyone. Chief Han is dead? The genetic warriors in the hall were horrified beyond measure. After all, Han Hai was a fifth-tier evolved being, yet he had died so effortlessly? Yi Li slowly turned around, his gaze fixed on the people in the hall. The people in the hall trembled violently. None dared to utter a word because their entire bodies were quaking with fear. "Are you all very afraid?" Yi Li asked slowly. Of course, the people in the hall were terrified, to the point where words couldn't describe their fear. Chapter 200. Your sister is outside. Luo Yu looked at Yi Li in astonishment. She had never encountered anyone like Yi Li before. Dominant, terrifying, decisive and ruthless. She couldn't fathom why there were people like Yi Li in the world. She truly couldn't understand. Yi Li gazed calmly at Luo Yu. From the moment he entered the hall, he knew that Luo Yu was an ice-cold person. However, no matter how cold one was, when they encountered Yi Li they would be astonished. It was the same for Lu Qingxue, and now it was the same for Luo Yu. "Your sister is currently outside," Yi Li said calmly, looking at Luo Yu. Luo Yu was taken aback. She hadn't expected Yi Li to say such words. "Is that true? Believe it or not, it's up to you." With that, Yi Li began walking towards the exit. He didn't like explaining himself and didn't need to explain to anyone. As for the genetic warriors in the hall, they were nothing more than opportunists. Now that Han Hai was dead, they naturally assumed that Yi Li was Luo Yu's backing, and they would naturally fear both Yi Li and Luo Yu. Making people fear you was often better than earning their respect. Yi Li had just arrived in the wilderness area, and he didn't want to slaughter an organization at random. It served no purpose, as he had never been a bloodthirsty person. Luo Yu watched Yi Li's departing figure, pondering for a few seconds before following him. The genetic warriors in the hall saw Luo Yu following Yi Li, and they glanced at each other, nodding at each other before also following. Now that Han Hai was dead, they naturally acknowledged Luo Yu as the new leader. Even though Luo Yu was only a second-tier evolved being, she had Yi Li, the great demon king, behind her. Luo Yu and the group of flame warriors followed Yi Li to the gate. Although the flame base was not very large, it was still a castle, so there was some distance to cover. Before entering, Yi Li instructed the Apocalypse Legion to protect Luo Li. Now that he had arrived at Luo Li's side, she seemed delighted. "Senior, you're finally out." Just as Luo Li finished speaking, she saw Luo Yu and a group of flame organization members coming out. "Sister," Luo Li called out happily. The little girl knew that with Yi Li's 4 7th-tier zombies, he would surely avenge her. Luo Li rushed into Luo Yu's embrace, and Luo Yu, looking at Luo Li, suddenly felt an inexplicable desire to cry. If it weren't for Yi Li, she might have become Han Hai's woman by now. Luo Yu raised her head and looked at Yi Li. By her side, there were over 100 flame organization members, and they all turned their gazes towards Yi Li. However, as soon as they looked, they all took several steps back in fear, their faces filled with terror as they stared at the 4 7th-tier zombies by Yi Li's side. The first one stood over 1.9 meters tall, with a red cloak, silver boxing gloves and a handsome face. The second one appeared to be about 10 years old, but he was broad and stout, weighing nearly 100 kilograms. The third one wore a fiery red long dress, her 3,000 green strands of hair cascading down, her face as delicate as jade, as if she had been carved by the world's greatest sculptor. The fourth one wore a white princess-style dress and looked like an 8-year-old porcelain doll, incredibly adorable. Although their faces were almost devoid of any signs of decay, their red eyes let everyone know that they were 7th-tier zombies. It was only now that they finally understood that what the first-tier evolved being had said was all true. Why panic? The sky hasn't fallen yet. Leader, the sky has fallen. The crowd couldn't help but recall the conversation between the first-tier evolved being and Han Hai. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.